Good evening, everybody. We are live.
Good evening, all.
Evening.
Good evening. Evening. So, as you'll see tonight, it's myself and the two Pauls, which might get a bit confusing again at some point, but we'll try and not get it confusing. So, first things first out of the way, I'll just send Jay's apologies. Jay is, I need to word this right, he's in the mountains doing the Duke of Edinburgh Award with some students, I believe.
Yeah,
that sounded better that time. So he's away doing the Duke of Edinburgh Award. So he was going to try and dial in, I think, but I don't think he's going to manage. I think he's better off just trying to stay on the mountain than try to join us. So Jay's doing that. Steve is actually at work, so he should be joining us again next week, I believe. I think next week's back to normal, yeah. So
yeah.
He's working just now, so unfortunately he won't be able to make it. So you're stuck with us three tonight. I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing, but
we'll soon find out.
Paul again has kindly stepped in as a guest host, so thank you very much to Paul for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
And hopefully everybody's doing well. So yeah, same things as usual. I suppose we'll start with you, Paul. Fishpalace, what's been happening with you this week, mate?
Not a lot, actually. I find that in the summer I do very little to the tank, and I don't tend to buy much coral or fish. One of it is because of the weather, because obviously the tank swings, it goes up and down more. The tank's only been about 27 degrees this week, but I don't tend to do anything. So I've said earlier on to the guys that I keep the windows closed and doors closed. I've said that before, but other than that, I don't do anything else to the tanks other than maybe turn the power heads up just to get a bit more oxygen, a bit more surface agitation. But I just let all three tanks do their thing, and I've done that over the last few years, especially when the temperature's topped 30, and it seems to be okay. Touch wood, I don't seem to lose anything, but in the same fashion, I don't then go and add corals or fish or anything like that. And also, I spend very little time with the tank over the summer because I'm doing other stuff. My boys just bought a house, so I've been around there quite a bit this week, helping him out. So from a tank perspective, not a lot. I was up at 6:30 yesterday testing one of the tanks. I thought I might as well do a bit of testing. So I haven't done testing for, I don't know, about a month. So that was on the bigger tank in the dining room, the Red Sea Reefer 450. And that was okay. Parameters okay. So I think nitrates were 2.5. Phosphate was 0.06, which is a little bit higher than usual. I usually do it as a 0.03. But I can bring that down a little bit. Alk was 8.4, calcium 400, and magnesium 1400, which are all within the ranges that are okay. So considering I haven't done anything, I've been away for a month, that was okay. That's all pretty much okay. I'll do the other test on the other two tanks probably tomorrow morning to see how that's going. And I might do a water change on one of the tanks, but I mean, that's about it. One thing I want to pick up on was last week, we had a big debate around salt mixing, didn't we? And Jay mixing his salt, I don't know, was it a week or no? I think it was 36 hours. I think it was. Yeah. So I think you do Tropic Marine. Was it 30 minutes or 20 minutes? You
mix? I do 20 minutes usually is when I do mine, mate.
I'm firmly with Ross in this camp. Firmly with Ross. Mine, the moment that goes clear and the salinity's right, is going in the tank.
So is that Tropic Marine?
That's Tropic Marine Pro, yeah.
Right. So I exchange messages with them every so often on Instagram for completely different reasons. So I thought I'd drop the guy a line that I speak to, just asking him, saying, we've had this debate, blah, blah, blah. What's the best thing to do? He referred to the BRS video of the test that they've done. And it says usually it's about 8 to 14 hours, which was the average, I think, on the BRS. But the TM1 dissolves a lot better, and the long and short of it is, it can vary. You could do it for 30 minutes, or you can do it up to 14 hours. And he knows a number of people that does that range. So like anything, there's lots of different ways. What he usually does is about 30 minutes. Sounds familiar to you two guys. Mixes it, gets it up to the temperature, takes the salinity check, and then does the water change. So it's that kind of 30 minutes to 14 hours. Not too sure there's a sweet spot, but he certainly seems to do it at the lower end, which is the 30 minutes, which I think is pretty consistent. So it sounds like you guys do the right thing based on someone who works for Tropic Marine. And it works for him, and I know it works for you guys as well, from what you said before.
I suppose I must add, when I do mine, the water change machine takes 4 hours to do it, so I'm probably cheating a little bit by saying it's going straight in. So it's a little bit longer and slower in the mixing process.
Yeah. Does it actually mix in that 4 hours as well? Is it kind of you mix it, you take the power head?
Well, I mix it. Yeah. Well, I use it comes with its own jet, so you just use that back on itself to mix the salt in it via a pump that's inside it. So yeah, once that's cleared, that goes on, but it takes 4 hours because it's obviously 88 litres.
Yeah.
So, and it cycles on and off. So yeah, no. So I'm probably just slightly not as hot in the tank as Ross on it, but I'm definitely in that camp.
Yeah.
That's a really good response, actually, isn't it?
So what I've been trying to do is I would like to get, because quite a few people on here use Tropic Marine, all different things, the All for Reef, and I know it was recommended a few weeks ago, wasn't it? And that's why I went to it, and I used the salt. You've done some reviews on the salt amongst other things, haven't you? So I'd like to get them on as a guest, because we haven't really had a manufacturer on as a guest before. So they'll probably come on later on in the year. They've agreed to it. One of the reps from US will come on at some point, but just been exchanged. So I thought I would just exchange emails with him to see if I can get an answer from the horse's mouth, so to speak. And that's what they've come back on, which is pretty consistent. So it's pretty good. The guy came back within about 3 or 4 hours, which I thought was on point as well. So there we go. So that's kind of about it from me. So not a lot to report. Everything's ticking over.
So I've got a quick question for you, Paul, on your update then. So obviously this is widely reported in the hobby anyway. So when you do this summer phase, and I'm with you, on summer I try to just slow down, keep my hands out of the tank and let it go on. Do you feel like your tank is better when you do that? Do you feel like you get better growth, better results? Do you feel like keeping your hands out is better for it, or do you not really see much difference?
I think sometimes yes, sometimes no. I think is the answer. So if I have a look at it, the coloration in the 900 is really good at the moment. The 170, which is a floating aquascape, it's got a bit of a problem with green hair algae, so that's not looking as good. So I think probably the nitrates are too high, hence why I'm going to do the test. And the 450, the SPS are growing pretty good. In fact, they're grown to the point where I was cleaning the glass last weekend and I knocked a big chunk of aquapora off. It was probably about 9 inches high by about 6 inches wide, and I've got nowhere else to put it, so I gave it to someone that I know. Now that shouldn't have happened, so that's how much it's grown. It's now grown. It's basically from the base of the tank right up. So you think about your Red Sea Reefer, the aquapora, the base sits on the sand and it stretches right up to the top, and is actually about 1 inch from the surface, and it's now the span of it is probably over 1 foot, and it's grown right towards the front. So when I used a magnet, it's the first time I cleaned it since I'm back from holiday, and it's probably the first time the glass got cleaned in 3 weeks. So it's must have grown quite a bit because I've knocked it straight off.
And what algae are you running that tank at? Because I'm trying to work out that a lot of people report around alg sort of parameters and growth, and I'm trying to find the sweet spot myself at the minute. So interesting to see what you run yours at.
It's 8.4, and it's crept up. So I probably for about the first 5 years of running the tank, it's about 7.
Yeah.
And I don't know why I ran it at 7. I think someone just recommended it to me, run your tank at 7. I only had the one tank at that time, and I just left it at 7. The last year, it's just crept up gradually to 8.4. And 8.4 is fun enough. What Red Sea salt I use, the blue bucket, is 8.4, and the other 2 tanks run at 8.4 for the simple reason that I do water changes on those and not on the bigger tank. So it's just a coincidence it's risen to 8.4, and I haven't really controlled it. But as it's gone up gradually, it doesn't matter. So I'm not really fussed as long as I've got some kind of stability on it. So if it went from 7 to 8.4 in a week or two, I'd be really worried, and it wouldn't happen. But it takes quite a bit of time to do that. So I've had good growth at 7, and obviously must have had really good growth in the last 4 or 5 weeks to smash a big slice that off of the off of aquapora. So I tend to find the less you mess with it, the better you get, because the more stable it is.
You've got it. That's a few year in tank, isn't it, as well? So
so it will be 6 years old on the 12th of August.
That's the magic formula, isn't it? Let's be honest with you. 18 months always, when the one tank that I really grow out, SPS, before. It was 18 months, and it just seemed to like take off. It's just such a long time to wait, isn't it?
Yeah, well, absolutely, and you know, that the aquapool I'm talking about, I bought that as kind of 2-3 inch frag, and that's gone mad over that period of time. It took ages to start growing, then it came from my first tank. So actually, that one is probably that frag. When it went into the 450, it wasn't a frag. It was probably about 6 or 7 inches high at that stage. So I've had that for about 6.5 years. That's really hardy, that's gone. You know, it's gone up lows and highs. I've never had a tank crash, touch wood, but I've had other things happen to it. Some of the nutrients going out of control. I've had a heater bust and the temperature went down. I had a notification, but I was out, so it was overnight. The temperature went down, so the tank went down to about 19 degrees, which is not disastrous, but it's substantially lower than the 25 that I keep it at. But of course, if that happens over, I suppose, a 6-9 hour period, you should be okay still going down to that temperature, and you just bring it up slightly. So I find less is more. So keeping your hands out of the tank, and also I haven't added any fish to that tank for over 3 years, because as soon as I got the Springer damsels, I decided that was it. We had the right level of stock. So therefore your nutrients don't really change. Your fish grow a little bit, but as you add in loads more fish and stuff like that, you then got to rebase your tank. You find your nutrients, you're feeding that. So I've had stability in as much I pretty much feed the same amount every day. So I think it's easier to control. Yeah, if you're adding tangs and quite a few different fish, you then got to look and say, right, okay, what's the right nutrient level for your tank? So that
you get to know, don't you, over time? If you make no changes, you can kind of I bet that's around that on nitrate or whatever. It's quite strange, isn't it? After a bit. Yeah,
and I don't think I've added any. The last coral I added to that particular tank was probably over a year ago, because it's full. And I've got no need to add any more corals to it, because I've got the other 2 tanks in the garage as well. So you think about stability, no new coral, no fish, it just does its thing. That's why, touch wood, it's really easy to look after. But I have got cyano, but that, as I mentioned last week, I think that's more to do with the weather, because every June, July I get cyano, and I haven't touched it, I haven't cleaned it off or anything. So I'm gonna try a different method of cleaning that cyano and see if I can get rid of it. Or I might just leave it and see if it naturally goes as the pollen goes. But
it's a strange old thing, isn't it?
Yeah, just the outside condition. But what I have found, evaporation, hardly any evaporation on the 3 tanks since they've been back from holiday, because the weather's so hot. Yeah, it's been so I had to hardly do any kind of top up.
Mine's exactly the same, mate. I've hardly topped up mine at all. So mine usually uses about 5 litres a week, give or take, depending, what's going on. But I've actually been 2 weeks now since I've done my water change, into a water change at the weekend there, and I still haven't topped up the RO reservoir, and it's still got enough left in it. Usually only lasts a week, so it's went 2 weeks now, so it's been a noticeable difference anyway. So before we go on any further, I've got a special VIP guest joining us now. Now, I kept this one quiet, wanted to kind of surprise everybody with this one. So this is somebody I've been speaking to for a while. He's been highly requested on the channel. I think you'll be really impressed with this one. Took a bit of work, but we've managed to get him here anyway. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce tonight's VIP guest. So hopefully he's all like this one anyway, but here he is.
Hey,
Mogsy, how are you? I thought you was at work.
How's it going, guys? I've just been watching.
I feel overdressed again. Look, I've got hair. Last time I got criticised because I was being bullied because I had hair.
I watched the comments back last time, and I got loads of over the length of my beard and not having enough beard game. So yeah, I like that.
How's it going?
The varying stages of beard growth here, aren't we?
I've just been sat there admiring the talk between the 2 Pauls, like Blackpool Reef put down, talking about making. I think he was making Big Ross there a bit. How can I put it? A bit. He was just sat there.
Small tank syndrome.
Yeah, inferior, because you were talking about big things. So you know what it is. I thought I'd come join you. Absolutely.
Small tank syndrome, mate. That's all it is.
Yeah, don't worry, mate. It happens to us all. Then we move on. We get bigger as we get older.
So yeah, welcome back.
So you've done tools at work then, Steve, have you?
No, well, what it is, we tested positive for COVID, so we're self-isolated. So that's why I'm off. Obviously, I had to let work know, and they've just said obviously you need to stay off for 10 days. So we tested it on Friday, I think it was. Yeah, Friday. Not Friday, sorry. When was it? We tested it Thursday, Wednesday it was, and the main results came back on the Wednesday, so the Wednesday evening. So yeah, came back positive. So we've got to self-isolate, and that's the reason why I'm on. Hence I'm back for this week. So yeah, no, it's I do miss it at Fridays. You know what I mean? It's just the job, obviously, but yeah, absolutely gutted when I'm not here. But hopefully, yeah, a good live stream, mate. Absolutely.
Yeah, so that's the VIP out of the way now. So, Paul UK Reefer, we'll jump to you next and see what's been happening to you this week, mate.
Yeah, well, it's been a bit of a strange one for my tank because we kind of got to the 7-month mark and it was all kind of going swimmingly. I was doing weekly water changes and I was like, right, I want to go a bit Mogsy on it and start reducing these water changes, make my life a bit easier. So I started doing that, kept an eye on the nutrients. They were slowly creeping up, but nothing too much. Sort of thinking, well, I'll do 1 in 3 weeks of water changes and sort of try to get to the holy grail of enough corals to keep it sort of without. But tank's not looked as good after a few weeks of doing it that, and I know it's still quite a young tank, so I feel like there's probably a bit of a better balance to go. So I've done a couple of big water changes this week, knocked a few of them out just to bring it all sort of back down. It looks better already, but kind of the ALP usage was sort of going down, so that's always a good sign that something's not enjoying itself in there. And I had a really nice barley coal that I got from Kraken. I had sort of up on the top, and that's just slowly STN'd over the last. Well, to be fair, it's been doing it very slowly but surely for a good few weeks. It's just never seemed happy, moved the flow around. But yeah, I think when you get them corals that are sort of wild caught, when you get them big corals that are sort of wild caught, they're always touch and go for me because they've never been in a tank before. So yeah, I'm going to put that one down to, I'm not quite sure what's wrong with it, but we're going to sort of push back to going back to some water changes. I think I'll do 1 every couple of weeks and see how we go. So yeah, it gives me a good excuse to get the new SPS off of the frag plug that they've been slowly acclimating for a few weeks and get them actually on the in the display now, then sort of on the scape. So yeah, a little bit of hands in, but nothing too much. I just say a bit like Paul. Other than that, I'm just trying to leave it alone and let it sort of grow out and see how it goes. So I've also been buying pretty much everything you guys keep showing me on your YouTube channels, which is quite annoying. So stop doing these product reviews. I bought the nitrate checker because Ross has done it. I bought this scraper. Who did the scraper? That was you as well, Ross, wasn't it? Was it? Yeah. Yep. So you did, and then the new fish food from First Bite from Mogsy. So, Paul, if you put anything out that costs more than 50 quid in the next week, I'm going to be in trouble.
There's no fear of that.
I can't help it. I just get
it for a while on that.
Yeah, I just get envy, and I'm just like, I need to use that. I love that. But the nitrate one is brilliant. It's definitely. I was waiting for that one after seeing the first one, thinking there's no chance I'm going to do that. But that new one, and it came back. Actually, at the worst point, my nitrates were up to about 20, which is quite high. They usually sit around 10, so quite good to use that. And to be fair, if I don't need to look at an orange colour and try and work it out on a NIOS test kit, I'll take it any day of the week. So yeah, that's really it. Really.
Also, Paul, that's the question.
No, you know what? It was the week after. I still can't get over that. I'll absolutely laughed out loud with that one. That was brilliant. Yeah, I really did. That was great. I need to check this guy's channel out as well, because I feel like it's one of them things you'll watch one video and then just start watching the whole how to keep sheep from start to finish and get right into it. So yeah. So that's it really. Just just trying to keep it in one piece and enjoy the sunshine in the summer as well. I've not been putting out as much content. I did my first live stream on my own channel, which Paul joined and helped me out in the chat. But yeah, I've got a whole new respect for trying to look at the chat and do it all as a one-man band. That was hard work. But it was good. It was reasonably successful for a first try. But yeah, I think I've got a bit to go yet to get up to the Friday night live stream standard. So
I thought you did a top job because it is. We talk about this. It is difficult when you're hosting and trying to talk.
Yeah.
The good thing of us, the other guys can step in and have a conversation while you're going through the comments, but you've got to, chew and walk gum at the same time, which is not easy for a bloke.
I watched it back, and I think I jumped topics a little bit too quickly for my own liking. But yeah, I'm my own worst critic. So no, it was still good. And as I say, loads of the guys that I talked to on Instagram came on. So yeah, that's nice to have a chat with them people a bit more fluid. So yeah, brilliant. And loads of them are in here anyway, I'm sure. So yeah, good week. Good week.
Well,
no sunburn on my head either. So win all round.
I managed to avoid it too, mate. So it's good. So there's a comment here on the screen asking if anyone was going to crack now. Now, I don't know if everybody in the chat knows about this, but a couple of people have said about cracking. So Dom, Cracking Corals are having a open weekend frag swap, frag meet type thing. It's the first week in October, which I think is the second.
It's the second and third, isn't it? So 2 days. Yeah. It's the Saturday and Sunday, isn't it? Saturday
and Sunday, second and third. And that's at Cracking Corals, which is near kind of Manchester way, Blackburn, yeah. So I'm going to travel down to that. I think you're going to try and go, Steve, aren't you?
I'm going, mate. Yeah, I'm going.
Paul, are you going?
Yeah, I plan to. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
And I take it, Paul Longhurst, you might not.
No, I doubt it, because I'm out on a Saturday. And so I won't be able to. If I wasn't, then I might have travelled up. But it's 4.5 hours for me, so I can't do that on the Sunday. That's each way. Unless my plans change for the Saturday, I won't be there. But I think Jay's looking to go as well, if I'm in the chat earlier in the week. So is it ticketed or is it?
No, you just turn up.
Just turn up.
Yeah. Well, let me just jump in, because it says like it's a frag meet, it's a frag swap. Yeah, that's what they advertise it. But if you've not got any frags, you can still turn up, because you can buy the frags. You see, so they should really, they say. Because a lot of people, like a couple of my friends, they didn't go because they thought they needed frags. You know what I mean?
Right.
But you don't need frags. You can go there and you'll see the vendors, they see the guys who are swap, and you can buy them off them. So if you've not got any frags to go, like, people might not have any in the stream here, or just turn up, and then if you see something, you'll get them at a decent price. It's not like shop prices. You get them as just like a private seller. So yeah, definitely get over there, because it's really, really good.
It's something else. It's a good idea to just have a chat, isn't it, and catch up with everybody who's there and have a natter and things like that. So that'd be good. We'll maybe try and get a bit of live stream on a few of the channels going to people who can't get that far up north. Maybe that'd be good.
Yeah.
That'd be good. Absolutely.
So when it's a frag swap, do people list the kind of frags they want to swap, and then you arrange in advance as well? I've seen that happen before. Or is it just on the day you go in and say, I fancy that, and you end up exchanging there and then?
Yeah. So you basically just turn up.
Yeah,
and you'll see. I believe the last one, it was really busy. Obviously, a couple of years ago it wasn't it now? So a year and a half ago, wasn't it? Before all this COVID hit. But there was loads of people that went to that. Loads of people. But they'll have them all on the side. They put like tables out, on the sides and stuff. And then sometimes if the weather's decent or half decent, it's not raining, they'll leave them on the outside as well. You know what I mean? I've seen it on the outside.
Okay.
So. But you just turn up and you just like, what do you call it? You see them, you see what you want. And if you see something that you like, you just say, can I have that? You don't need to say, well, here's one of my frags for your frag. You don't need to. Some people will, because some people might not have what you've got. So, in that sense, but the majority of people, they just turn up and they just like buy them from the vendor. Do you know what I mean? So, but it's really good because, like Paul said, so you chat to people and you ask them like how do they run their tanks, and you always learn. Do you know what I mean? You always learn. So that's the good thing. Some people say like how I remember speaking to a guy and he was running his alkalinity at like 6.5, and I'm like, that's underwater. That's like sea level's low, but 6.5. He was just having so much growth. It's like unbelievable. So it brought into the account of thinking the higher the alk, the better the growth. Obviously not with him because he was saying like he was growing them like weeds. So and he is at 6.5. So I think it's all about stability in it. If you tank 6.5 all the time, your corals are going to get used to it and they're going to grow. Do you know what I mean? It's like me. I have mine high, or I did have it high. Seeing great growth. Yeah, I did see good growth. But the colour wasn't there. Now I've dropped it down to 9.4, 9.5. Totally different. I'm seeing, obviously, not as fast a growth, but the colours have come out on the corals. No fold, like tenfold. The growth of the clams have gone insane. You know what I mean? I don't know why. The clams have just grown massive, like doubled in size within what 3-4 weeks. It's just stupid, you know, the size of them. But it's a good thing. But it just goes to show, I think you've just got to stick with you know, in your mind, you've got to say to yourself, this is what I want to do. Like me, I was like up and down, like a yo-yo, or do it low first, then I went high, then now I'm back to middle. You know what I mean? So it's like, but my tank's 2.5 years old, so it's not like a big change, you know, in it. It's like, I've done it slowly. So now I'm just going to leave it at this. I'm not even going to mess about with it. Just going to stick to what I've got now.
But also, alk is just one part of the jigsaw, isn't it? When you think about lights, the other water quality, your power heads, all those kind of things, there's a number of factors at play there, isn't it? And if one of them's out of sync, you won't get as good a result as if they all align. And the problem is trying to get them all aligned and then keeping them there as well. And that's why, as we said earlier, as the tank gets older, it's easier to do that because one, you get more experience. And then the tank is then less likely to swing and other stuff like that. Ross, there was a couple of questions earlier on. One of them was when we were talking about cyno. Isn't cyno connected to zero phosphates? Phosphates getting too low. Now that's not my understanding of phosphates. My understanding of cyno, what usually causes, if I get it, is one, an imbalance between nitrates and phosphates. That can cause it. I've seen some articles recently around people, if you skim too much, that can cause it. I haven't seen that, but I've heard about it. So I don't know if that's a fact or whether that's someone's misinterpretation.
It's a bit like ick, Paul, isn't it? Where it's always present. It's a naturally occurring thing in any water column. And I think low flow is also another one that I've seen where it encourages it.
That doesn't help, does it? That keeps it, helps, that hangs it around. So if you've got lots of flow, you might have cyno, but it won't be allowed to rest and it'll just break up and then hopefully go down into your filter socks, your clavacy or whatever. So there's that. And also I think in newer tanks, you've got an imbalance. And also if you've got quite a sterile environment, bacteria and algae are easier to grow as well. What does cause, if you have your phosphates and your nitrates too low and you've got poor bacteria, that's where dino, whatever you want to call it, you get an outbreak. So that's when it is too low and people run too ultra low nutrients. That's what causes that.
I've been there, but in a bad way.
I've never had it because my nutrients have never been never too low.
And funnily enough, if you ask anyone who's got rid of dinos, that cyno is usually the next thing that comes once you've got rid of it. So some people are hoping for the sight of it. There's a group on Facebook. He's called, I think it's Jason Mack. I want to say something. Head got dino. It was on Reef. I think it was on Reef Farm or something last week, actually in America. But he's based in Amsterdam, but he's British. He's got a support group on it on Facebook, and it's brilliant. His advice is great. He'll even if you show him a microscopic slide of your dinos, he'll analyze it for you, tell which one you've got. He's unreal. So if anyone's struggling with that, don't do it alone. Get on that group. Would be my advice. But they say once you've finally got rid of it, it's on its way out, you'll usually get cyno and then quite a big hair algae bloom because you've been dosing silicates and nitrates and phosphates in your tank. So
you take it from one extreme to the other, don't you? Because it's too low, you take it the other way, that dies, and then there's a gap there, and that's filled by that. There was a really good YouTube video this week by Reef Bum, and I think it was titled it's harder to look after a tank now than it was a few years ago. And he was talking, I think, in some of you guys filling the gaps. It was something like the equipment's a lot better. So therefore you're stripping out too much. No live rock. He's been fighting dinos, and then your lights and everything else, and it's become a lot harder to run a tank. It was a really interesting take. You think of the technology, it should be easier, shouldn't it?
Exactly. You know what? I watched that video, and you know what? He struggled with that tank from start to finish. You know, that beginning, the second tank, and yet you look at his first one, and he's like incredible. It's like a work of art, isn't it? You know, like all of his.
Bare bottom as well, though, Mogsy. That new one.
It did crash. It did crash the big one as well, though, didn't it? He started having problems with that as well. So. But exactly.
It's bare bottom as well, so I always think that they seem to be a lot harder to get going than things.
I know.
And he put the whole his doser dosed literally all of his alk into his, all of his, I don't, it could have even been all of his no, but something happened. He dosed like a whole bottle of something into his tank.
Yeah.
So he's had a bit of a nightmare, but he's got a cracking display tank.
Oh, incredible.
I just thought it's an interesting take with all this technology and all the science we know about now, but it's arguably harder now than then, and how what people just over I suppose over-egging most of the things that they do. And I don't know if you mentioned live rock or not, because I think that's a big issue, that we had live rock, now it's sterile, you had all the bacteria. I know you get kind of nasties with it and things like that, but that is a big issue, but something you have to be aware of. I think having just a complete sterile tank, throwing your fish in, sticking your lights on full, no sand, and then it just goes through the roof, all your algae and everything else. And if you over filter, it takes it the other way. So it's I think it's a really good video. I don't usually watch these videos, but it came up on my recommendation. I was just caught by the title of it, but it's really good.
I suppose the holy grail is clean rock that's got a couple of years old worth of bacteria on it. That would be, if you could bottle that up. I think BRS have said it a few times, like, someone please make this and sell it. Because everyone should just buy it, and you could get instant tanks every time. So.
I tell you what, if LFS sold those max spec bio balls already, so they have them in their main displays, and they've had them for 18 months or whatever it is, and you say, right, I'll take half a dozen of those, obviously put them in the tank water, put them in your tank at home, you've got some natural filtration there, because people recommended that you have your dead rock and then you have a piece of live rock in there. Well, the second best thing would be to, if you can't buy live rock, the Bibles, because they're a lot smaller, aren't they? Yeah. And therefore they're easy to carry, easier to transport, so you could ship them out fairly easy in a bag. So if someone done that, I'd certainly buy that.
I think that was the success of cycling this tank. I threw every bit of bacteria in it you could think of anyway, and I properly overkilled it. But for me, the key bit was taking a bag of, I took the bio balls for this and put them in the nano for 3 months anyway, and then I took all of the bio balls out of the nano and put them in with this. And I feel like that had been going for a year or 14 months. Even just that, I think makes a big difference.
Yeah, that's definitely works. Yeah.
But again, you've got to start somewhere. So.
Yeah, that's true. Just before we go on with that, there was a comment here from Coral Reef Queens. Now, I just wanted to mention Coral Reef Queens because I don't know if any of you don't follow them on Instagram. If you check out their Instagram page, that's probably one of my favourite tanks out there just now. But they did actually have...
I love it.
So this week, actually, it was Reef Builders was round at their house doing a feature on the tank that's going to be on Reef Builders' YouTube channel. Wow. I don't know if anybody noticed that, but they're going to be featured on, I think it's a series that they're doing called Reef Stock at Home UK. It's part of Reef Builders' channel. So they've actually been featured on that. So I just wanted to say congratulations to them for that one. I think that's fantastic. So if you keep an eye out for that, you should see that coming soon, I believe. But yeah, that's quite an impressive feat, I would say, that one. So if you don't already follow, I'm going to have a look at Instagram and you'll be able to see the tank already. But it's definitely one of my favourites just now.
Yeah, anyway. It's a good channel. And just on that point about reefroids, I use reefroids, but I use it sparingly, because I find if I use reefroids, it's really good, but it tends to send the nutrients quite high when I use it. So I use it kind of once every couple of months, because it does have quite an effect. Maybe I overdose it, but that is quite known for having full of nutrients, but supposed to be really good for coral.
Yeah. Okay. There's no one. There's anyone seen Mike C Softy Tank, the most beautiful tank seen so far? I don't know who that one is. No, I haven't seen that one. So yeah, quite a lot of talk about people with reefroids saying they don't broadcast it, make it like a paste, keep it that way. Then Algor said reefroids help when I had to have tank fallow for 3 months.
It's a great nutrient source, isn't it? You can smell it. You only need to smell that when you mix that with water, and you know that it's got exactly what you think that's got in it. I used to just mix it with the mysis and then just broadcast it, to be honest with you.
Although I'm not going to lie, I didn't know you could make a paste from it. I always had it quite a watery consistency, so I might look at that actually, because that could be quite a good shout. It's
quite intensive though, so I suppose you don't want to overface whatever your broadcast feeding with it. If it's too strong, you might be too much, because I mean you see the reaction even with the watery paste. You can see your coral polyps going mad. But I must admit I've used that on and off. But that and the Red Sea AB Plus, if I dose them continuously, I see cyano, and I saw it in the Max Nano. And when I stopped dosing the AB Plus, I've got far less cyano. So again, I don't know whether it was just unbalancing the nutrients again or something strange like that. But at the minute now, I just dose a few mils of Acro Power a day and then just call it done. At the minute, corals are not big enough yet for a real over-the-top feed, and I don't have too many meaty LPS type ones either. So I'll just cut that in and just think that there's enough nitrate and phosphate in there. I'll let them crack on with it.
I used to use the AB. I used it probably for the first 3 years I had the tank, and of course you have to manually do it every day, and I just kind of lost the interest in the time. But it was fine. And I think I probably got pretty good growth from it actually. To be fair, and I used to use the A, B, C, and D as well, which is in mono, potassium, and all those ones. According to what the calcium, used the full Red Sea range when I first started the tank for quite a while. And the tank grew out pretty well, and I didn't have any issues. I don't think with cyano due to AB, but every tank's different, isn't it? And that's the thing, isn't it? How it affects your tank will be completely different to how it affects my tank.
So I suppose we can jump on to you, Steve. I don't know, has it been 2 weeks since we've had you on the stream, mate?
Mate. Yeah.
2 weeks. So what's been happening the past fortnight with you, mate?
It's pretty good, really. I bought a couple of new coral, so I'm in the process. I'm in the process of making a video for that. It's just with being ill, I was ill for the first like 2 days or so. Really ill, like I was aching and everything. It's like a big flu, which is strange because I've had both my jabs, but it does affect you. It can still affect you. You know what I mean? So I didn't really do much. But yeah, overall, mate, the tanks are fantastic. What I did do though was I dosed the ABEV of all the aquaforest stuff. Yeah. Now I used to dose that daily, every day.
Yeah.
Obviously, you dose A and B and then E and V. Yeah. So like sporadically, etc. Yeah. So that's what I was doing. But my mate who runs the shop up in out of the blue. Yeah. He was saying, well, why do you do that? He said, listen, this is what I do, and he doses all of them at the beginning of the week. All of them, one pipette. Squirts it straight into the tank, no mixing, just once a week. He does it once a week, and the growth on that main display is insane. I couldn't believe it. It's like his torch corals were growing heads every other week. You know what I mean? It was massive.
He does that with the iodine. He showed me doing that with the iodine when I was in the shop. I was like, I bought some Lugol's off him. He's like, look, 2 drops of that. Done.
That's what I mean. Weekly. So I've been doing that for like. About 2 weeks, 2 or 3 weeks, just to see if I had any adverse effects, on my tank. And I must admit, I don't know if it's in my head, but I can definitely see growth on like the mushrooms. I see growth on like the Montiporas, the Montiporas. I can see it spreading all around the rock. Now I don't know if it's in my head and I'm just seeing it, or and I'm just saying it's because of that. But something's definitely working, in it. So I'm just going to stick to that. So every Monday now, I just like one squirt of each of them, and then I leave it to the following Monday. So that's what I've been doing with the main display. I bought one of those things that you said, Ross, the scrapers. I thought they were a great idea. Went to Crack and Coals, got one of them. I've got the. I pre-ordered the Hannah checker anyway. From Kraken, so I went up and I picked that up. This was before, obviously, I tested positive for this COVID. I tested that, and I shown you, didn't I? Like I was having 0 nitrates in the tank. Now, on the third test kit, it was reading about 2.5 to 5. So there was definitely a tinge of pink. So I was like, what's going on here? Like, so I've left it. So I've upped the feeding now. I'm putting 4 cubes in the tank. Plus flakes.
Don't tell Jay that, mate. Don't tell Jay.
4 flakes plus flakes plus like I'll get the whole thing is going in that tank, and I've been doing that for the past 3-4 days. So I tested it today, and I come back and it's reading 2.5 ppm on that nitrate test. Now, this is where the problem lies because it's a +2 and it's a -2, so it can either be 0.3, or it could be 4.3. So 4.2, yeah. So this is the problem we're having. So it's not going to be like 100% what it is, but it gives me a read, you know, in the range of what I think it should be. Now I want to run mine between 5 and 10. So 7 is ideal for me. I've seen, you know, it seems to be pretty decent at 7, yeah. So at this moment in time, I'm trying to raise the nitrates up in that tank because everything's looking great, but I want to keep it because like it comes on to cyano then, yeah. My phosphates are running about 0.05. I've done a Triton test. That Triton sent me one. If you don't already know, I think I mentioned it. Have I mentioned it? Where I lost me over Triton. I bought one, sent it off, and they said that they never received it, but they must have received it because they signed for it because I had recorded delivery. So I signed for it. But they were, you know what, they were great through it all. And they said, listen, we'll send you one out. I didn't think they were going to send me one out, and they did. A couple of days later, I got one through the door. So that was pretty great of them. So I did it. I've tested it, and everything's come back perfect on the test. Everything. I had tin, which was on my last one. I don't know where tin come from, but tin was supposed to have been present in it. That's completely gone. And yeah, everything is perfect in it. My phosphates were reading 0.05. Calcium, magnesium was reading 1380, which is bang on, which I like it at. And calcium was reading at 480, which is slightly higher than I would go for. You want it 450, 460. I didn't really, but it must be like that all the time because I've never upped the dose and I've not dropped the dose, so that's what it's dosing in the tank. So
but the thing is, that don't really matter though, does it? If one of them's just out of sync a little bit, the tank's looking fine. You could be pedantic and that about it, but you think, well, actually, is 20 going to make a difference?
No,
in the scheme of things, it ain't, is it? Really? So it's one of those where, okay, I could tweak it a little bit, but so what? It doesn't matter. And that's the thing, you can get so het up about that kind of stuff, can't you? And then you start overreacting to stuff. You start bringing it up, and all of a sudden, bang, it goes through the roof, and you think, why did I do that, and why did I bother?
Exactly. Yeah. So that's it, because you know what we do is we chase numbers because we have this thing in our mind of what these great, you know, tanks look like and what people say. If you know, people say, oh, I'm running my tank at this, that 1500, you know, magnesium, 500 calcium, etc. So we think, God, this tank looks great, but it comes to the point where what's right for this tank might not work for ours. You know what I mean? So you need to find that sweet spot. So I seem to have found that sweet spot with it. So for me, I'm just going to stick to it. I'm not going to change it. I'm not changing the dosing. I'm sticking to the dosing. So to me, that's going to be 480 all the time, because unless obviously things start to grow, then the calcium gets took more and stuff like that. But then obviously I put the KH Keeper Plus, guys, absolutely incredible. I can't say anything over. I thought it would be because of the step of but it's literally it's reading 9.56 ish, and it literally through the whole day it dropped 0.12 through the whole day. I was doing it every hour for like 3 days, so obviously it was just.
I've seen 4 or 5 others saying exactly the same, Mogsy, as well.
Oh, it's incredible, mate. It is incredible. I tested it with the Hannah checker, and the Hannah checker came in at 9.48, and when I tested and I set a test at the same time as when I set the Hannah checker, So obviously it took the water out at the same time, and then the machine came back at 9.52. So it was like 0.04, you know what I mean? Which is like super spot on. So I'm really chuffed with that, the way it's gone. I mean, it's an expensive piece of kit. So at the end of the day, it should be working the way it should do. You know what I mean? I know it's not 100. It's not like a lab grade professional kit, you know, like which costs tens of thousands of pounds, and I can appreciate that. But it should give you in the region of what the alkalinity should be, give or take. Do you know what I mean? It should be in the ballpark. Whereas
it's got to give you 600 quid's worth of
800.
800 quid's
800.
Worth of, that's what I mean. It needs to give you that much level of sort of I don't know.
I mean,
from buying it, isn't it?
I'm not asking it to be like absolutely specific, like spot on, yeah. But what I'm asking it to do is like, so say if my water is 9.5, say for argument's sake, yeah, on a professional lab grade machine, even if that comes in at like 9.7 or something, or 9.3.
Doesn't matter if it does it the same every time, does it?
It's in that region. You know what I mean?
Consistency you want, isn't it? So if it's out by 0.4 every time, it doesn't matter. At least you're going to get a range, and you can see where it should be and try and lock it in at that. Whether it's out by 0.3 or 0.5, it doesn't matter, does it? Because some people say about the DD controller that is out by about 0.3 or 0.4 of a degree. I don't care if I run mine at 25.5. If that's at 26 or 25, but it keeps it and it stops it from crashing because it stops the heater from failing. I don't care for I mean, what is it, 43, 45 quid the controller? It's a lot of money, but it's dirt cheap for what it can save.
Well, this was another thing which I was having, because I've got the DD controller. Like we all have, I think we all have our DD. So, and I've never had a problem with it. I had one on my other tank, and I've had one on it, and I've got one on this. I've never had an issue. But the other day, it was like my tank went up to like 27.2 degrees. It went up to, and I was like, "Holy moly! Like this is a problem." This. So I had like the ice bags in the tank. I had like the fan blasting on it. You know what I mean? I had the full works. You know, to try and bring it down and stuff. And I was like, what? And it was coming down slowly, but it wasn't coming down very, very quick. But I could see, like the Goniapora I've got in it, I think that's on its last legs. You know what I mean? It's a true, but I don't think it's took the heat too long, you know, as good. But everything else, touch wood, has survived, you know what I mean? But that's the problem what we have over here. We don't get a lot of sun. We don't get a lot of heat, But when we do, we panic like mad because we've invested a lot of money and time in these tanks, you know what I mean? And if you think about it, 27 degrees, 27.2 degrees is like, freaking hell, that's that. Consider I run mine at 25.6, 25.7. So it's like...
So Mogsy, so before this live stream started, I was in your camp, and I was talking to Ross very briefly before we started going on about, I've had the fan on every night, I've done this, I've done that. And Paul just basically said, well, I'll just leave it. So just absolutely take it.
So mine was 27.3 yesterday, and I've just left it alone. The power heads went up a little bit just to get the oxygen, because if they're hot, you get less oxygen. And I have every year when it's gone out, I just left it. The only time, if it goes above into 28, that kind of thing, should I do something, stick a fan on? But I've done absolutely zero with it, other than doors and windows downstairs closed. Until such time it's a little bit cooler outside than inside, then I open the windows. Touch wood. I mean, it could all go wrong, but I've done it every year, and all I've got is cyano, as I said earlier on. So I'm sitting here thinking, am I doing it wrong? But I've done it like before. Everyone's different. I mean, and you've got different stock to me. As I said earlier on, I don't think I've added a coral certainly in the big tank for over a year. I've had no additional fish for 3 years in the big tank. So it's pretty hardy, and it's been through the summers for nearly 6 years now. It hasn't changed its place, hasn't really changed much. So I'm expecting it to be okay. I might end up falling on my ass because it might crash, but that's my kind of view on it. But
well, what you won't have had this week is your wife shouting at you because she spent 50 quid on the new fan, and it's sat on that for the whole week. So that's one thing that you're definitely doing right, Paul.
I just had the electricity bill for 3 tanks for a few years.
Exactly, yeah. No,
those cheap volume fans that I've got are brilliant, by the way.
Well, really, you know what? Good. I've got the D&D fans, which is blasted on my tank. You know what I mean? I had to do. Oh, that was another thing. What I had to do. You know, I had to do little tiny cutouts where the fan. You know where the fan sits on. You took it off. So when I went to put it on, it won't fit, and I'm like, oh my god. So I've had to like put the actual main of the of the lid. Just cut it by about half an inch, just so there's a tiny like 1 inch gap or something. So I guarantee you, one of the fish is going to jump out. You're going to find it. I can see it. I've just got a feeling that's what's going to happen. You know what I mean? You always seem to find a space, the hole. You know what I mean? So it's like, so I'm hoping and praying that won't happen. But that's another thing that I've done, obviously, in the last 2 weeks. So I've managed to do that. And other than buying a couple of coral, the little nano tank, the clam in that little nano tank. I have been looking for another tank actually. And I was going to buy one from Kraken Corals. Dom, if you don't already know, he's got a load of his tanks up. If anybody's in the lookout for some tanks,
I saw that. Yeah,
he's got a load of them because he's got the Red Sea 900, the super one, you know, the super size one. That's on order, so that's coming. So I think he's going to turn that into his main front display. I think he's selling four tanks. Now I was going to buy the nano one, you know, the water box one. He's selling it with the prime. Now I've already got the prime, so I don't need another light. Do you know what I mean? But it's a cracking bargain. Anybody in the thing for it, 400 quid with the light and the stand and everything. It's a bargain. Do you know what I mean? If it wasn't, if it didn't have the light, I would have had it. But it's just I don't need the light, so yeah, I'll just be spending money for no reason. But yeah, other than that, though, guys, that's all I've done really. Looked after the tanks, cleaned it, used that scraper. Really impressed with that scraper.
It's a good little scraper, actually, isn't it?
Really good.
The only thing that it doesn't do, which I will point out, is actually in the corners. You know, in the corner of your tank. Don't know whether you've done it because a credit card is rounded. It won't get into that corner. Do you know? So there is like a slight little, only a few mil.
I know what you mean.
And you can't get to it. So I've got it with a toothbrush and I just like screwed it, with a toothbrush. But other than that, it's a 10 out of 10.
You try cutting another card, like a hotel key card. Just cut it straight. It might help.
It's just because like
toothbrush. It's hard to get into toothbrush.
It's hard. It's a tricky one, but I'm well impressed with it. Absolutely,
it did a cracking job on my centre overflow box. I must admit, that's one I can never really get to very well. But it did a good job on that.
I think for such a simple thing, it works really well.
Another thing, though, these Hannah checkers, if any of you guys know, they've made these Hannah checkers, they've sent them out, they've distributed them, but you cannot find the powders for the love of money. So I don't understand that.
Oh, you mentioned that the other day, didn't you? Yeah.
You can't get them. So I want to know, like,
have you been onto Hannah's Instruments directly? Because that's where I get all mine on. Yeah, they not have them now.
Yeah,
not even out of stock. That's with Hannah, and I'm like, what the hell's going on here? Dom, I asked Dom, and he said he doesn't know when he's going to get them. So we've got a machine there that only comes with 10 of them. And if you do test them regularly, like some people do test them, especially if they're cycling or whatever, then they might test them 2 times a week. Say, within 5 weeks they've run out. You know what I mean? So
I feel like it's poor that it only comes with 10 as well for 70 quid. That's tight, isn't it?
That's a lot. That's a lot of money. I must admit, I hear you guys talk about Hannah all the time, and it must be really good. But I'm not tempted at all. I'm really good with the Red Sea alkalinity that you can do in about 30 seconds. I use the Red Sea nitrate and everything else. Go on.
What it boils down to is laziness, for us, We don't want. I don't want to be sat there with these powders and mixing them and then reagent and then the titration and all this nonsense. I just want to put it in a vial. Shake it up a little bit. Put it in it, press the go button, and let's get it on with it. That's all I want to do.
The little digital number tells me what I need to know.
I'm not sold. The Red Sea alkalinity, you just put 10 ml and you squeeze it, and then you got it.
Exactly. How good is that?
That's it. That's what I'm saying. That's the Red Sea alkalinity. So I'm not
find yourself near a window going, is this natural light? Is this colour? Or shall I ask the missus what colour she thinks it is?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
I understand you're colourblind. If you're colourblind, I totally get how none of those test kits are any good, so digital, because it just ain't going to work, is it? But I must admit, personally, I'm not sold on it. But I get why people do it. But
to be fair, I wasn't sold on it either. And then once I won that, I got the £100 for Reef Exotics, and I thought, well, I'll take a punt on it. And see now, I'm completely sold on them because I'm comparing.
You're on the dark side, are you?
Yes. Full disclosure, I said I would never ever do it, but since getting those ones, now I got the phosphate and the alkalinity one, and I don't want to use big words as it changed my life, but it was a massive, massive improvement between trying to sit there and, like you said, Paul, looking at the window, try to see if the light's right, try to go, is it between that or is it that one? And then the card maybe only goes between 5 and 10, so you've only got a value for 5 and a value for 10, so you don't know anything in between that. And then I just find them so much easier. And what it has actually done is made me, I wouldn't say test more often, but it's made me more willing to do my tests. Whereas some weeks I was going, I really cannot be bothered sitting going through 10 different Salifert boxes here with all the different kits and that. Whereas, like you say, you just take your vial, stick it in, press the button, and you do something else. And then as long as you remember to look at it when the countdown is done, because there's no beep when it times out.
So the hack for that one though is
that's an extra 20 quid.
Well, no, the hack for that one is all you need to do is get out and just get the spare vial, do your tank water, and then just do it without the timed part. So you'll be all right with that. If ever that happens, mate, you don't need to do a new test.
Yeah.
Just get your tank water in the other one, then just don't hold the button down. Just press it once, and you just do a quick test between the two. So I've managed that one because I've done that so many times. But no, just buying that nitrate one, it means that now I don't. The only ones I have are them or titration, so I don't ever have to wait to the end of the test and then check it against the colour chart. So I'm happy.
Batship Reefer's put down there, and this is a good point, really. Is it right that it works out to £1 a test? It is right. It does work out to £1 a test and stuff. Yeah. So, I mean, I can understand where people come from with the Salifert. I mean, I've used the Salifert for the Hannah for the alkaline air. Yeah, I've used it. I used it for years, 2 years, and it was great. Don't get me wrong, and it did, give an accurate reading on it. So when you look at it, you're getting 50. What is it? I think it's like 52 or 60 tests with the Salifert, and it costs 11 quid. So what does that work out? It's like
brand new reefer, straight to Salifert. That's what I'd tell it. Any reefer.
Yeah, I did on that, and then I decided that you couldn't read it very well, so I then went to Red Sea, and I only use Red Sea and Elos, to be fair, in the test kits that I use. But,
I totally agree there. But brand spank, just getting started. You don't need to go out and you don't need to buy a Hannah checker. You don't really need to do that. Yeah, get the Salifert. Saliferts are great. Same as Red Sea. Red Sea. When I had my 170, that's all I bought was all Red Sea products. Yeah. From the test kits to the actual, the maturation one. Where you dosed all the stuff through getting it cycling and stuff.
Reef mature,
the reef mature. Did all that stuff. So I used all the Red Sea products, and I'll never slag them off because they were great. Do you know what I mean? But it comes to the point, and I say it time and time again when I'm on here, I want to enjoy my tank, I want to sit there, I want to look at it, I want to sit, and I don't want to be spending all my time doing tests, you know what I mean? Like, just like me, I'm lazy. I've got a KH keeper where I look on my phone, I don't even need to test it, so that says a lot for me, doesn't it? You know what I mean? It does it automatically. But, people, when people say, like my missus says, £800 for that. What? Because she doesn't understand. You know what I mean? 800 quid. It's a lot of money.
The thing, though, Mogsy, what you're doing yourself a disservice there for me, because yes, it helps you be lazy. Yeah. But it's lazy. Do you know what it does more than anything? If that actually works the way we're all hoping it does, because otherwise we don't know what you're going to do to it live on telly.
Fair point.
What it is going to do, if it does exactly what it says on the tin, it's going to tell you when stuff's going wrong, and that's 800 quid is what that is for. When you've got a tank full of how much coral, I don't know. If that tells you, if something can tell you your temperature's out of whack, or your KH is out of whack, they're your two things that are going to go first, or your pH, but KH links to that. For me, they're the ones that save your tank. So that's why I bought an Apex, because whenever if this heater sticks on, and has been tested, I was saying it before the stream, when the heat gets too high in that tank, I've also got the DD controller, but I've also got the Apex as a second redundancy, and it cuts the power to it. In case the heater sticks on, I've got two moments that can stop that happening, because if you watch anything, they're the things that kill your tank first, or if something dies in there, it's going to get something. Them are the two things, and you've maybe nailed one of the two biggest things in the tank by buying that. So I hope it works, because
I'm the same as you, Paul. Exactly the same. Redundancy in a tank is a must. I've got the Apex, like you said. I've got the EL version, which is thing. Well, I've added onto it, over time. So I've got the leak detection kit put on it. So I've got all of the, I've just added on. I could have bought the full version, but for a new starter like myself, I didn't need it. All I wanted was the temperature, and I just wanted to control that. If for instance, like you said, the heat went up. I've got 2 heaters on my tank. So I have the D&D one, which is linked to the D&D heater controller, cooler controller. But then I have a separate one, because if something happens to that, or something happens to the other one is linked to my Apex. So I've set that for the same temperature. That one very rarely comes on, but it's at a redundancy. Do you know what I mean? Just in case the other one goes off, because like I said, heat, alkalinity, and probably like an overdose of no-pox, which I don't even use no-pox anyway, so. Those three, for me, are the biggest killers in a reef. That if your tank gets dosed with some no-pox, or that it's gone. You're not going to come back from that. Do you know what I mean? So for me, those three for me are the ones that I look for. And if I can make them redundant, if I can make something redundant, then that's what I'm going to do, no matter what. Because like you said, we've got thousands of pounds of coral, literally thousands of pounds. We all have in our tanks. Do you know what I mean? Yeah.
I'm still trying to convince the missus we need a full generator. So that's the next challenge. And like she thinks I'm thinking like a little camping one. I'm like, bring it in on the low loader, mate.
You know what I bought? I bought one, mate. It's in that shed outside. Yeah, I bought one because there's a couple of streets beyond from me. Yeah, the power went out, and I'm like, you are kidding me? And it was out for like 20 odd hours, and I went, this will be game over if this was out for 24 hours. So I was looking on Amazon, and I was like, you know what?
Well, I had that with the Nano last year. I had that with the Nano, and it was off for 2 days, and I stayed up all night. And I set an alarm at 1 hour every night, and put boiling water in a jug, and held it in the tank, and brought the temperature up again. Then went back to bed. It was ridiculous. I mean, that would have been dead. I wouldn't have been able to do it without boiling water. But
that's it. So I ended up paying like 389 quid for one, which would be able to run the main thing. So like the heat.
You've got to use the tactics. You can plug your phone in and charge your phone in case of an emergency.
Exactly.
So on the temperature controllers, I would not buy a heater unless it had a built-in thermostat as well. So I was doing that, and I don't buy that. 1 degree above. So there's a redundancy there. So I always do that. I don't know why. Touch wood, I've been okay. I've had them fail whereby they're just blown out and then the temperature goes down and the apex has sent the alarm to me. But I always do that because then you've got a redundancy on that. So I would not buy a heater unless it's got it built in, because then you've got a redundancy.
My fear with that, Paul, my fear with that is that I watched a BRS vid again, or was it I think it was a Neptune video about them heaters and how they work. And obviously it's a piece of metal in it that reacts to the temperature, so open and close. And I was thinking, the more moving parts, the more chance of that actually happening in the first place. So I thought if I've only got one or two,
maybe it fails, I'll get an apex alert. If the apex fails, then I've got a backup of the heater.
Yeah,
and it might be overkill, but it's the same on the D&D. That's supposed to cut it out. But if that doesn't work, then I've got the backup on the heater itself. And of course, if both of them blow, then you've just got to say,
I've slightly undersized. I've got the titanium bar on this one, but I've slightly undersized it. It's a 300 watt, which is probably just on the edge of too small for this tank. But I thought rather that than the next one up's 500-600 watt, and that will smoke that tank quick.
Have you only got one heater on yours?
Yeah, I've only put one bar on. I've got a backup. I've got two 300. Well, I've got three or four 200 watt bars in the back that I can whack on in an emergency, so it's not a problem. And I'll get all the alerts and all that. But I only put one on the basis that I've got the DD controller on it and then the Apex as well. So I've kind of got the redundancy, and it's going to push notification and alarm. Yeah. And the other thing, my next sort of nerd level project is to create an audible, really loud alarm for the Apex. So basically program it while you get the push notifications. That doesn't wake you up. So the plan is to set some sort of alarm and then like write the code in reverse. So that it's an alarm that if you plug it, it just goes on. Yeah. So I just need to find the right alarm to plug into the socket and then write the code in. So
that's what I did. I've got the D&D, the titanium one plugged into the D&D one, obviously because it's got no thermostat, so it needs to be controlled. And then, but I've also got a 300 watt EHIM that's plugged into the Apex.
The Apex, right?
And I've coded the Apex to turn off when it gets to certain temperatures, but I've put it very like on the edge of like what it should be. So it's like 25.2. So just in case, so it never comes on, you know what I mean? But a word of thing is that no matter what, whether it comes on or not, or whether it gets used, I always change my heaters every year. Regardless, I change my heaters every year.
I've got the same heater on the 450 when I set it up. So that heater's been in there for nearly 6 years, touch wood. And if it fails, then I'll get an alert and I'll replace it. I've got a spare one down the shed. I might be a bit too blasé, am I?
That's incredible, mate. That's probably one of the oldest heaters in existence, mate.
It's an EHIM 200 watt. And
mine's a 300 classic.
When I bought it.
It's a classic kit.
It's got a thermostat.
It's probably worth more than he started with. It's probably on that.
It's worth more than his tank now.
It's got to be an aquarium museum somewhere. To that, mate.
Yeah, sure. No, but I keep them. I still keep them, yeah. And I heat all my water up. You know, my water for like when I'm mixing all my stuff up, or I'm doing the salt water, like the water changing my nano and stuff. And I use the spares, but I've got like 4 spare heaters here. You know what I mean? Like, but they are plenty of spares. You know what I mean?
I was planning to do it at 18 months, maybe not 12. I'm thinking 18 months.
Every 12 months, every 12, because I look at it and I think, 55 quid for 45 quid for a 300 watt EI meter, yeah. Listen, it comes down to the point. If it's stuck on, say for instance, yeah, it's killing all my coral. If it's, you know what I mean. So for me, for 50 quid, get it changed and have that peace of mind and thinking, well, it's new, so it should last. You know what I mean? And that's what I do, mate. I just do it religiously now. It's just got into that habit where I just do it. You know what I mean? And you know what I might do, mate? If you need one, hit me up. Yes, you can have it for 20 quid.
So before we go further, I just want to jump back to a couple of comments that was on here.
There was a good one by Coral Reef Queens relating to that's the one.
Yeah, that one. So I asked about a piece of live rock that's been previously used and dried out. She wants to use it in a new nano tank, but would you soak it in RO for a week or two or go straight in the new nano tank with some colony? I don't know on this one. It's not something I've ever done before, but I don't know about you guys.
Yeah, so I'd leave it out.
I'd leave it out.
So what I've done before is I had exactly the same. One of the tanks after 1 year, I took the rock out, I left it in the shed. I then, because I used it in the 900, about 6 or 7 pieces, I bleached it. So I put it in a tub. And I think it was 1 part bleach to 7 parts water. There's a really good video on BRS. And the key to it is then leaving it out to dry. Because when you leave it out to dry afterwards, all of the bleach then precipitates and just disappears. So it evaporates basically. So
How long did you leave it in there to soak though?
Too long. I think I left it for a week, but I can't remember. But the BRS would say. So what I tended to do, because it had all algae and all kind of things, so I picked all that stuff out first, and then I just put it in a vat, left it outside with a lid on for 7 days. I can't remember how long. So that's one way of doing it, as long as you dry it off. If it's just one piece, then you just use it in RO. But if it's going to go into a new tank,
I was going to say the big question here is if it's a new tank, there's nothing else in it, and just started from scratch, then it's probably different to if you're putting it into an existing one, isn't it?
Existing tank,
So if it's a new tank, I would potentially, you could put it in your existing tank so it gets all the good bacteria in it. But if you clean it off first, because then it's going to get all the good bacteria in that existing tank first, and then you've got that. Or if you put it in the new tank, see if you can then transfer a piece of rock, or I don't know if you've got any bio balls or anything that you can then transfer, similar to what you did, Paul, and take that from the existing tank to the new tank, because then you've got some really good bacteria and it help your cycle. Because one of the things is when you do RO or bleach or anything, it is 100% sterile. So if you mix that with colony, the issue you've got no bacteria in your tank. You put fish in, ATM colony and lights on, you've got a really good chance of having an algae outbreak fairly soon. I'm not saying it won't go, because it will, but in terms of answering the question, that is what I would do. I'd either bleach it for 7 days, let it dry out, and then it's going to be completely sterile, or you could do it in RO. And
my warning bells going on here are what's going to leach out. So that's what I'm thinking. How did that become? What was it used before? If it's got organics on it, is it going to start leaching phosphate and nitrate and stuff like that as well, which will be a parameter that you've got to try and control all of a sudden. So I think it's very much what was the rock used on as well was a big question in that one.
Yeah, fair.
But yeah, the bleach technique basically means you're safe as houses, and the other technique means you might be able to get some life that helps. But there might still be some level of I can't see much biological life left on it if it's just been out to dry.
If it's been bleached, it'll be dead now. The only thing that will be in it will be phosphate, nitrate, and all kind of crap. I doubt there's going to be anything decent in it. But look at BRS, because I can't remember exactly how I did it.
So it's going into a brand new tank, but getting given some clowns a week later, Fritz colony stuff and bioballs to help cycle.
Yeah, it's a
if you're
tricky
not
one.
in a rush to get the clowns, perhaps you've got two routes. Either go with what Paul said, or if you're not in a rush to get the clowns, chuck it in and start curing it with the bacteria. Feed it a little bit of ammonia, start and cycle the tank with the rock and see how you go. But just watch your nitrate and your phosphate after your cycle. I suppose it could still be leaching stuff out. That's the problem.
Yeah, if you've got bioballs from the existing tank, then it should have sufficient bacteria because it's going into a nano. So actually, you could argue you don't need to cycle it because that should cycle it. But by putting colony and fritz and that, you're helping that cycle, helping to build bacteria. I'd also throw in things like some live foods, so like copepods. If you can get some live baby brine, that's really, really good as well. So
Practical Reefers just said a very good point as well, actually, on the bleach.
Yeah, make sure it's clean. Yeah, non-vegan as well.
Yeah,
it's got to be that anyway, and it's got to be non.
Don't get the super lemon zesty version.
The blue one. The blue one. That's what you need.
Yeah, that's a fair point. But yeah, look at the BRS one. I think they do mention around getting non-fragrance bleach as well. So there's a couple of ideas.
Please don't go down the acid route. That's whatever you do. There's there's a route to doing that, and I think even BRS shut it down after a while because it's really dangerous. People have hurt themselves doing it, and it actually just dissolves your rock as well. So don't because there's a few people who put videos out on that, and if you're not thinking straight and you watch one and you think it's just really dangerous, there's loads of like non-dangerous ways of doing these things.
Yeah, it's a bit like people boiling the rocks. They do hot water. And then they put rock into it, and they've done it in a confined space as well, because that releases loads of gases and stuff that's really toxic. So that's another thing that I've seen people, not anytime recent, but that used to happen 4, 5, 6 years ago, where people had Actasia, and people were saying, "Well, boil the rock." No, we don't do that.
Citric acid is the only acid you should use anywhere near any of your stuff. Citric acid, completely harmless, and it does a great job on getting rid of coralline off your pumps and stuff like that, and cleaning your stuff. Don't put it in the tank, obviously.
So the other thing I had done was the hydrogen peroxide, but I don't know quite what that would take out of there. But the hydrogen peroxide, when I done it, the rock came out clean and white. So
okay,
I don't know if that would work on that or not, or if it would just be.
Good call, that. Yeah. Well, it took all the algae off that frag pool, mate. So it did something. Didn't it? So,
it worked really effectively on taking the algae off and cleaning the rock up. Actually, the rock cleaned up.
I was really impressed with that. In fact, I was. It come to the point where I was shocked from like when I seen it, what it was like, and then what it went to. I was like, just looked like a totally different frag, didn't it? So I've never tried it, but it was a great video. That definitely.
And I think also add a cup of sand from your existing tank as well, because that's going to be full of bacteria. So there's ways to stop it from being sterile from day one, because you've got an existing tank. So make the use of that. That will definitely help.
The other thing
it's just a multiple approach, isn't it? Sorry, go on.
No, right. See if you take out, so how we mentioned, if you've got bioballs in your existing tank and you remove some of them and put them in the new tank, would that not cause issues with your nutrients in the existing tank because it's not got the same removal anymore? Or am I reading too much into that?
It depends on how many you're starting with. So absolutely. So if you've got quite a few, taking maybe 1 or 2 would do the trick. And then if you've got some spare ones, replace it with those and they'll build up over time. If you're taking out like 50%, then you've probably got a problem. But if you was to take out a couple and you're taking out 5% or 3%, you'd probably be okay. So it really depends on how many you've got. But then if your nutrients were a little bit, you could probably adjust it in a different way. But it's a fair point to look at, Ross. If you transferring from a nano to another nano, then you're taking out a lot. I think that'd be an issue. It could be.
Yeah. There was another point that I wanted to come to, actually, going back to the testing. It was one from Black Pearl Reef, and he'd said, do you know you can use the reagents from a salifert phosphate kit in a Hana phosphate checker? And I didn't know that. I don't know if that's... I've never read that anywhere before or anything either, so it's an interesting one because I'd rather buy...
So I've now got to try this, haven't I? And you've got to do it with a back-to-back with an actual one and one of them, haven't you? Yeah. I think we've got to try this.
You can be the guinea pig. You can go for that.
We've got to try that. We've got to do it back-to-back with the other one as well, though, for a bit of a just to be sure. I mean, I would never have even thought to do that. I'm like, no, it must be this because it's obviously this magic elixir that's come from Hana that nobody else has ever designed. It's probably all in the same factory, isn't it?
I know. So yeah, I thought that was quite an interesting one actually.
Interesting
that you can potentially use that. So Paul, we'll let you be the guinea pig on that one and see.
Yeah, I might give that a try.
See how it comes out. So yeah, I'm going to jump on to my tank this week. So in the last live stream I mentioned that I got obviously the new nitrate checker and done the test on it, and it showed up as 0 nitrates. So I went and tested it with the Salifert kit and was still getting low readings of nitrates, but not kind of what I was used to. So took a sample of my water to my LFS, which is Nessie's lair. They tested it and said that they tested it to be around about 1 on the nitrate. So nitrates were low. So I skipped my water change last weekend. Didn't do my water change, just left that. I left the filter floss in like half a week longer than I normally would and slightly overfed the tank. So I've managed to get my nitrates up. Now it sounds quite a big jump, but I've done this over almost kind of 2 weeks as such. But managed to get my nitrates up to 6.2 just now. So that's a lot better than 1 or whatever it was anyway. The only issue that I've got with that, not really an issue as such, because the tank still looks fine, looks okay, but the phosphate's up to 0.12 just now, so I'm going to lower the phosphate down a little bit. But I do have quite a bit of algae that's grown in the rock recently, obviously, with just there being that imbalance there and things not being quite right. So I've got a bit of work to do with trying to get everything back under control. Now, obviously, the nitrate's climbing just now, so I want to make sure that it doesn't overshoot again and cause me more problems. So I just need to take a bit of time on it and make sure I can get everything kind of back in check again. So that's really the main focus for that. Also sounds a bit kind of strange, this one, but I did actually put a couple more corals in the tank this week, which I know a lot of people say you probably shouldn't have done that if the levels weren't right, but I think like we spoke about before, the tank looks really healthy. Other than the algae, the corals and everything's all growing as well as they ever have now. I don't have any SPS, I'm just literally soft corals, some LPS, and that's about it. So I was on Ultimate Reef, and I mentioned this last week. I'd never really used Ultimate Reef before at all, to be honest with you. So I jumped on Ultimate Reef and joined the kind of Scottish section of that one, had a look about there, and was quite surprised as to how willing people are to swap frags, give people frags, you know, all that kind of stuff. So there was a guy who was actually advertising that he had some colonies of the Gorgonian that he was trying to frag off if people was interested. So I commented on that, I'd be interested in them. And then there was a guy who actually lived 5 minutes away from me. I didn't know who he was, never heard of him before. And he said, I live pretty close to you. If you want to nip down, I'll give you a bit of mine, save you travelling. So, you know, I was really, really thankful for that. So I went and picked up a tiny little bit of Gorgonian, and when I was there, he gave me some clove polyps as well. So I just one of those things I actually just wanted to say that if people don't know about Ultimate Reef, it's well worth checking out. I mean, besides the coral swaps and so on, the amount of knowledge that's on there is ridiculous. I sat there a day and you could literally spend weeks and weeks and weeks trawling through the pages, picking up knowledge. Now, again, you need to watch what you do because there is a bit of conflicting knowledge, and there's the typical know-alls that you'll get on every single type of.
It's very subjective, some of it, isn't it?
Yeah. So you have to pick out carefully what I think you want to read. But on the whole, I've been quite impressed with that. So, I just wanted to kind of let people know that if you don't know about the Ultimate Reef Forum, it is quite a good thing to go and have a look at. I know that you're quite active on that, Paul, aren't you? Fishpalace.
Yeah, I haven't been too active recently, but it's where it's one of the first forums I joined, and it's where I learned a hell of a lot, and a lot of people on there helped me quite a bit. There's some really good people on there. And I've had swap stuff on there. I've given stuff away on there as well. And in fact, the big piece that I talked about at the beginning, that's where I gave it away. It was a guy I knew that was actually local. He said, Paul, I'll have it. There was 3 people who come up, 1 person I knew, so I gave it to him. So there was a free piece on there, and you get all kinds of really good stuff on there that people will give away. And also there's a really good livestock section as well of people selling corals, and usually the coral is really cheap. You do get some high-end pieces on it, but if people starting out, if you want some decent softies, LPS, it's a really good place to go, because people don't usually go on there to sell all the names and make money on there. They're there to share with other people. So I've sold quite a few pieces on there in the past, and I've bought quite a few pieces on there in the past as well. So I think it's a really good site. You get some numpties on there like you do with anything, and you get some people that are real know-it-alls. But in the main, it's a really good I think.
They used to be our YouTube, didn't it? Before YouTube, that's exactly where when I was reefing, when I first started reefing, that was that was where I went, because I mean, and I remember I bought an Aqua Reef 400 tank, and then went on there and somebody had a build feed. A build sort of feed that just went on over weeks and weeks and weeks, and more than just watching how they'd made loads of adjustments and changes to this tank, because obviously with tanks now, a load of them you could just plug and play. With these things, you got them, and then there was loads of things that were wrong with them, like the baffle always made noise, and this always made noise. These were just brilliant, because loads of people would say, put a little piece of plastic on that, or put a little pump there, or wrap this pipe with a bit of tea towel, and all these sorts of things, because we're all in the hunt to like make sure this tank is not humming away in the corner, because again, 8 years ago they were a lot noisier. So that used to be the best thing ever for that, and then that sort of YouTube's probably stole its thunder a little bit now, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I think
Facebook killed it off, because people moved from forums to Facebook. So probably about the only forum in the UK. It's the equivalent of Reef to Reef. But I mean, obviously Reef to Reef is huge still in America, and then Instagram, I think, is people moving away from Facebook to Instagram, and YouTube, I think, sits in the middle. I would say on that.
For me on that one though, see the whole forum thing now, years and years ago, like you said, Paul, before YouTube and so on, forums were the go-to for everything. I mean, no matter what it was, be it a car forum, an aquarium, there was forums for everything. Whereas for me personally now, I find it very difficult to A, find the time to sit down and go through a forum properly, or B, actually be as active as I want to be in a forum, because, it's fine saying, you can do it on your phone, which you can, that's fine, but I don't really have a job where I'm in front of a computer screen all day long, or where, I can spend 5 minutes here or there. So it's kind of difficult. Whereas I also find it easier to learn by watching somebody doing something rather than reading reading instructions and so on. So that's my way of doing it. So YouTube for me is my go-to. But I was really impressed with the amount of stuff on Ultimate Reef forum-wise. If you kind of take a step back to the old school way, then it is quite a good thing, to be honest. And I will keep using it. I don't know how active I can be on it. I'm going to be as active as I can on it, but it's definitely easier for me learning things, watching guys on YouTube, seeing their tanks, seeing what they do, how they do it. I mean, that sticks in my head, whereas if I read something on a bit of paper, I just can't process it.
When the thread is 287 pages long and you're on page 2.
And there's some on there,
I might leave that. Do you know what they're good for as well? Is if you've got a really random question about a product or something you're doing or something's not working. I remember when I got the Reefer 250, the valve on it, they're a pain in the arse at the best of times anyway, but I could not get it working. I literally type in if the valve's and it would like take you to the build thread. So sometimes they're good for like taking you in and out, but again, like my best advice on any of that is if you're going to take anyone's advice on anything, just make sure they've done it or they've had a long history of that, because again, you will have people on there, and especially you still see it on the Facebook groups now where somebody goes on and goes, what's this? And it's like green hair algae. And some of the responses, rather than it's green hair algae, are unbelievable. So my advice would always be pick someone who's doing what you want to try and emulate, and then ask them questions on how they did theirs, rather than trying to just take anyone's random advice. Because what you end up doing is waiting to hear what you want to hear, which is, can I put a Mandarin Dragonet in a 8-litre tank? Someone somewhere on the internet will say yes. So you're off to try and find that one yes to go, I'm going to do that sort of thing. So I don't know. I think
the one I see quite often on Facebook is people say, I want to bring down my nitrate to phosphate, but I don't have a skimmer. Then people say use Nopox. The fundamental thing with Nopox is you need a skimmer. And you need a good skimmer. And people come out and they go, oh yeah, it's a great idea. And then people are just going to go away and use it, and it'll work zero, and they'll say Nopox is crap. On the back of that. And there's things like that, and you think, really? And it's not one person who jumps on that thread. There's a number of people that jump on that thread and say it.
Yeah. Well, with me, like Nopox and like, the nitrophos and stuff like that from Aquaforest and stuff like that. For me, if my nutrients are going up and they're going up stupidly, and there's a reason why, for me, there's a reason. So I'm either overdosing, as in feeding wise, there's an imbalance in my system. So rather than going the easy way, I always think, well, what could it be? You know what I mean? I'm trying process elimination of what it could be in my tank. I only dose really the nitrophos in my tank for maybe 2 months or so, because my nutrients were quite high, and I was like, what the hell? And then they start But I think what it was as my tank began to mature and it was getting older and it was more, you know, I was getting more bacteria in the tank. After that, I see when I was dosing it, I was dosing it, and then all of a sudden it like nearly bottomed out because I was still dosing the nitrophos in the tank. And then it comes to the point where I thought, hold on a minute, I've got 0 of this, I've got 0 of that. Something's going to go wrong here. We're in a problem here. So I stopped dosing. And ever since I stopped dosing that, my nutrients went up, my nitrates went up, my phosphate went up. But it's remained stable. It's always been remained stable. I've never dosed since then. And it's so now if it starts to rise, I'm thinking, which I wish it would rise actually, because I want it to be about 7 ppm. But no matter what I feed my tank, it's just not rising now. Now there's either too much bacteria in it because it's a mature tank. I don't know. Maybe I'm not feeding it enough. But then again, when I look at it, 4 cubes a day with 10 fish, that's a lot. That's a lot of food.
That's a lot. Yeah,
that's a lot of food. So I am feeding quite a lot. But no matter what I do, it still doesn't go up. It still remains, like I said, 2.3 on the Hannah checker. So you know, it's just one of those things. For me, if I find out what the problem is, then I don't need to dose that stuff. I know my mate. He's relied on the no-pox for 5 years.
Same here. I've been using it since day one on the 450
for 5 years, and I don't understand. You know what I mean? Like, why? Does it? But you know what it is? I think it's because it's a drug now to the tank. He's got used to it. So I think if he stopped his tank now, I think it would probably crash because he's been dosing it for so long.
I used to use it, no-pox.
But I use it as one of the main filtration because the whole point of it is it takes nitrate and phosphate out.
Exactly. Yeah.
So therefore, I've got. If I look at my sump, it has got a skimmer in.
Yeah.
It's got and that's it. Now I've got a heater in it and stuff like that, but that's all I've got in that main part is the heater.
So you've got no bio balls or anything like that in it?
No.
Right.
I've dosed no-pox since day one.
So your tank relatively relies on the no-pox then for the nutrient export of it, yeah?
Yeah.
Now, what I'm saying is if you stop the no-poxing now, your tank will bloom up with algae, it'll bloom up with everything now. I'm assuming that's what it would happen.
It's no different than if you had bio balls and then you took the bio balls out, you'd have the same issue.
Yeah.
Yeah, I suppose,
Because you take out the filtration.
Yeah. But do you get any like purple slime? Because my
I used to. I used to dose 13 mil a day when I had 2 big tanks. So I had a vampire tank and a real tank. I used to get around the in the return segment and around the float valve. I used to get all snotty basically.
Yeah, like purple slime.
When I got rid of the tangs, the no-pox went from 13 mil a day to 6 mil a day. That's how much bioload those 2 tangs carried.
Oh yeah.
And I've got to say, I don't think I've had the slime since. You might get it occasionally, but I haven't noticed it to the point where sometimes you think that's a bit cruddy. I'm going to have to clear that out.
Yeah.
I think sometimes if you overdose a little bit, so maybe the 13 was a little bit toppy, although it's a 450 one. But I decided to start it from day one when I got the tank. And day one, I put the tangs in. I had quite a heavy stock in there. And only because the no-pox come with the tanks, I thought, let's try it out. And I've had it ever since. The other 2 tanks, no-pox goes nowhere near it. Not because I don't like no-pox, because I want to do something different. One runs on bioballs and the other one now has a refugium. So I've deliberately done 3 different methods just to see what it's like. But I can't recommend no-pox enough if you use it in the right way. But
I've got a bottle of it, and I've got a bottle of it ready because if I can get to a place where I can dose a bit of lanthanum for the phosphate and dose no-pox and not do water changes, if that's what will balance it, I'll go for it eventually because I don't want to do water changes every week. Hopefully, the stock will get big enough so I won't need to do that. Yeah. But right now, I've done 3 weeks and my nitrate rising, my phosphate rising because I don't have enough coral stock in the tank.
You know what? It comes on to everything. It comes on to the point what we always say all the time, innit? It's like, you know, what works for you doesn't work for me. So I don't dose no-pox. I don't dose no-pox. I don't dose the other stuff, the aquaforest stuff, the nitrophos, I don't dose that. But my biodiversity in my tank with my rock, with my bio balls and stuff like that, that's enough to break down everything. So I've not done a water change in like close to 2 years.
Yeah.
And I don't
how many square inches of coral have you got in there as well, Mogsy? If you look at it, all of that coral surface is absorbing. Like you've got probably about 10 square foot of coral in there when you flatten them all out. It's unreal.
Well, you know
how much that will make a difference. So.
You know, another great thing is like clams as well, yeah? Clams take so much nutrients out of your tank. It's incredible, yeah? I watched a program, actually. It was on one of the, I don't know if it was on Prime, Amazon Prime, or it was on the Netflix or something, and it's showing you about clams and how big, you know, like when they're growing up, how much they take out, you know, the nutrients out of the system. And they can basically strip a whole tank out on their own, just under themselves. You know what I mean? I couldn't believe it. I was blown away with like what they can do, you know, clams. So I'm thinking, as my clams are getting bigger, because I've got 2 in there, and the Maximusa clam, that's all right, it's growing and stuff, yeah. But the Durasa clam has doubled in size. You'll see it on the next video, yeah. You'll be gobsmacked. Just go to the next video and then go to this one, and you'll see the difference. I don't know why it's grown so fast, but it's incredible. And I think it does. Is that got something to do with it taking the nutrients out of the tank?
It could be the 4 cubes. It's filter feeding those 4 cubes, so it's taking that food in, and it's just ballooning. You're making it a beast, Steve, by feeding for 4 cubes.
It's going to go for your hand next time you put your hand in the tank.
You know the funny thing is, yeah, I put it in the corner. You'll see it, yeah. And I've got some nice mushrooms there, and I've got my jack-o'-lantern that's spreading all over the rock, yeah. Which I need to actually break some flag plugs, and I need to stick flag plugs so it can grow on that, yeah. Because it's going to be on the rock, and I won't be able to get any off. You know what I mean? So, but I put it in the corner, and then I've realised to myself, yeah, how the hell am I going to move that clam now? Because what he's done is, you know, his foot. He's wiggled his foot down the sand, and he's stuck it to the bottom of the glass of the tank now. So I can't get it. He's stuck there. So he's going to grow in that corner. And I'm thinking, how the hell do you move a clam? I was Googling it. How do you move a clam without damaging the foot? And I'm like, people are just so unsure. It's like moving.
I've heard Colette's dad's good at that sort of thing.
I was just going to say that. Yeah. Colette's dad will sort it out for you, mate.
I tell them to bring jackhammer around, mate, because they soon dropped off after that, didn't they? But yeah, I can't. It won't move. I tried to pull it up, and I'm like, I need to move it over there where there's more space. And I'm like that, and I'm pulling on it, and I'm like, oh my god, I'm going to kill it here. I better just leave. So it's stuck there. You know what I mean? If anybody of you guys know how to move it, then please let me know, because
I've got a suggestion, Steve. I don't know if it would work or not. But see, if when I come down to the Kraken meat, if I bring down the crab, I'll probably get it to move.
You're gonna sneak it in and just dump it in his tank.
I'll stick it right next to the clam. Go to town, mate. Go to town on that.
I reckon you could bring that, Ross, and charge people a £5 for a selfie with it.
Put it in a tub. Do it, and who wants to swap?
That's it would definitely be a hit, I think.
Yeah, Ross, there was a couple of questions relating to carbon dosing and no-pox, because there was someone who said they would be concerned using no-pox. So I think there's a couple of things you need to make no-pox work. One, you need decent level of nitrate and phosphate, because it feeds off of both. If one is low and the other is high, it won't work. Secondly, I would not use the recommended dose to begin with from what no-pox says. I would start off with a small dose, like 1 milliliter, depending on the size of your tank, and then build it up and increase it over the weeks, depending on what your nutrients are. The key is you need a decent skimmer. So the skimmer I've got is a NIOS 160, which is on a 450 litre tank. It's 1,000 litres. It's made for. So you over skim, and you have to skim wet, because then it's taking out the water a lot quicker, and the no-pox, I don't know the science behind it, but it attaches the phosphate and nitrate to the bubbles, and it pulls it out and it binds. So on that side, what people say is it works for nitrate but doesn't work for phosphate. I disagree. Sometimes if I overfeed, the phosphate creeps up a little bit more than it should. And then what I have to do is maybe 2 or 3 times a year, if I go a bit mad on the feeding, I then put some Roaphos in. But if you're careful with your feed and you don't overfeed it, I don't increase the no-pox. I do it by a different way. But I find, it's 2 or 3 times a year, maybe for 2 weeks. So for like 42 weeks of the year or 44, it works really, really well. But don't go with the recommended dose, because you can end up putting too much in, and then you can have a bacteria bloom on the back of it. The issue with bacteria bloom is that strips oxygen out, and so I've seen people have a crash with their tank because of overdosed no-pox, and the no-pox then leads to the oxygen. I've overdosed no-pox before. What I've done is switch off my skimmer and put some more oxygen into the tank, and that solved it. Because if you switch the skimmer off, it doesn't work, so it won't pull all your nutrients out, and then you've got an oxygen issue, which you can get round with the water changes and air bricks or anything like that, air pumps or whatever you've got. So I wouldn't be afraid not to use it. Just be careful how you use it. But drop me a line or anything if you want any advice on it. I'm not an expert, but I've been using it for 6 years, and touch wood, my tank's been all right.
So with no-pox, is it a liquid, Paul, or is it a kind of solid?
It's a liquid. It's in a doser, so I keep it in the doser. The dosing container, you're not supposed to use acrylic because it doesn't like acrylic, and I think it damages it. So I just keep it in a plastic bottle, and it doses 6 ml. I dose it overnight. I think from about 1:30 to 3 o'clock in the morning. 6 ml just goes in, and that's what I do. On there, you can do it in one go, or you can do it over a period of time. It doesn't really make any difference, but the key is the skimmer.
Yeah.
There we go.
What was the one about carbon that you were saying about?
It's carbon dosing.
Oh yeah, Jamie's one.
It's the same thing, isn't it? As you say, no-pox is the same as vodka, vinegar, sugar.
It's a lot cheaper. No-pox, people say it's expensive. You can make your own. Yeah, it's just like you can make your own magnesium, calcium. A lot of people make their own alkalinity. I wouldn't do that because I'm far too incompetent and I'm far too lazy. So therefore, I pay the premium to get those products. But yeah, people do vodka dosing.
You're not lazy, Paul. You use Salifert and Red Sea test kits, mate. You're not lazy.
Yeah, I don't do it very often. I don't do it very often.
You use this Hannah, mate. We used Hannah checkers and KH.
It's like a day's work, so I'll see that.
Don't get all snotty with me, smarty pants.
Hey, I'm being nice there. I'm just saying you said you called yourself lazy. I'm saying you're not lazy.
Wait a minute. So Jay uses Hannah, and he takes 17 minutes at least. And he's going to watch this back later, Jay. So you know where I'm coming from.
And that's if he does it correctly.
It's a 2-hour job.
So Ninja Neil's just given that's Ninja Neil's challenge next week to report back.
Yeah,
it's a really nasty smell, no-pox. I wouldn't do that. Vodka dosing and other carbon dosing, yeah, absolutely, for sure you can, but not on no-pox. It's rank.
What I was going to jump on and ask on here was, we've talked a lot about the Alpha Reef, dosing the Alpha Reef stuff, and I think, Paul, you had said you'd got the powder, is that right, for making it up rather than the liquid? Or you could get the powder, sorry. Yeah, I actually seen quite a few people recently saying about mixing up their own using individual ingredients as such.
There's a video online. I think Tropic Marine put it out themselves to show you how, but it's utilising the 4 or 5 parts that go into Alpha Reef. So Alpha Reef is literally just the magnesium, the trace elements, all of these are different bottles that you can get, and Alpha Reef's been put together. And they said even if you made your own using all the individual things, it'd still be cheaper than Alpha Reef, because Alpha Reef, they've done the mixing for you. So yeah, I think so. The first bit of making it cheaper is mix your powder, and then that other bit, if you're doing it on scale, but you've got to be doing this to a scale for it to make the point, because you're going to be buying a 5-litre bottle of this or a 3-litre bottle of that.
Yeah.
So there's definitely a mixture. I think Thomas on BRS did a video on it. Now I'm coming to think of it, it wasn't Tropic Marine, it was Thomas on BRS. He did how to mix your own Alpha Reef, and he had all the individual bits. But I would definitely suggest doing that if you're using lots of it.
Because I think BRS actually sell their equivalent of the Alpha Reef products, don't they? And that's a kind of, I don't think when they're mixing their own, I think they use their own trace elements as such to mix that up. I could be wrong with that one.
They've got a 2-part, so they've got their own 2-part, which is again 2 parts, another name for the 3-part dosing that we use for like that Steve does on his tank and Paul does, and basically they then add a trace element that and I think they might even use the tropic marine. Then they do that with the trace element, but they dose all them separately. So the key difference with Alpha Reef is that it's a different type of alkalinity and mixture, and it's a different process that's happening. So I can't remember. I think it's carbonic, I want to say, but I'm probably wrong with that. But someone correct me in the chat. But basically, the process for the mixture, which is why they can all dose together at once, is it takes, and that's why when you change your dosing on Alpha Reef, you've got to check it the next day. If you add alkalinity into your tank purely, you can check your alkalinity in a couple of hours and it'll have gone up. With Alpha Reef, it takes longer the process, but it means you can dose them all together and they don't precipitate.
Yeah.
So that's the key difference. So when you go back to your traditional 2 parts, if you have to dose them separately, because otherwise, if ever you put calcium and alkalinity in at the same time, you'll see that you just lost everything you put in the tank.
Yeah, spot on. That's why I do alkalinity from 7:30 in the morning to 10 at night, and then my calcium and magnesium goes in overnight, and there's about an hour gap between the two of them for exactly that reason.
Yeah, so I can't remember the name. It's driving me mad that I can't remember the name of what the process is.
I love that Alpha Reef. I think it's fantastic. I think it's so bloody stable, especially in a smaller tank. I mean, it will become, I would assume, I've said it before, more expensive in a bigger tank. Yeah, you've got loads of corals and stuff like that. It would be, I think it would be unviable to do it. But I've said anything up to like a 200 litre, with enough coral, with nice bunch of coral. Yeah, I mean, you've seen my nano tank yet? All right, that's only like a 60 litre little tank. Yeah. But it's absolutely ram-packed with coral the way it's grown. Do you know what I mean? And I'm only dosing what 10 mil of that Alpha Reef daily, 10 mil in the morning, and I'll test the alkalinity on the Hannah checker. It'll be 8.6, 8.7 all the time. It never ever fluctuates. It's always the same. You know what I mean? So for me, it's about consistency again. It's consistent, so I'll just leave it at that. You know what I mean? It's great. I love it.
It's got a good reputation, and then because I haven't seen any posts where people are caning it or giving it any kind of negative feedback. Because I mean, Red Sea get a lot of negative feedback anyway, and their products are seen overpriced and stuff like that. Look at the Foundation A, B, and C, but I haven't seen anything slagging Alpha Reef off.
Just the cost.
Because it works, mate. It works. I mean, the cost is expensive, I suppose, if you look at it. But then I think to myself, look, I buy the 500 mil one, So it's what's that? It works out at 10. So it'll last me 50 days. You know what I mean? So for me, 50 days is like, it's enough. It's nearly 2 months. So for what, £18 is it? 19 quid over there. So for me, it's, I mean, if for instance, I would never dose it on my main display, because I dread to think on how much it would be. You know what I mean? You'd have to dose something stupid, I would have thought. But on a small system, like I've said, on a nano 200 litre, up to 200 litre for me, the mediumly stocked, I think you can't go wrong with that Alpha Reef. I think it's great, especially the powder form. You know what I mean?
And also, it's only one dosing as well. You haven't got to have 3 or 4 dosing pumps. You can on one. So actually, the cost of running it, less cables, blah blah blah.
So this is the game changer. This is the game changer for me on bringing new reefers into dosing and into the more intricate part of the hobby. This is maybe the joint between the two, because I remember when I first got into it, I managed to keep stuff alive, but the idea of even testing alkalinity and calcium and magnesium was like, you're going to another level here. I just about got down that I need to worry about the temperature and the nitrate. I didn't even test phosphate. I didn't even know what it was, and I thought that was a lot of testing. So I suppose if you're going to see, if people then start naturally getting interested in it, that route is so. I was just, the idea of testing all them and then dosing them and having an actual doser was scary. Yeah. So I reckon this stuff is like, you could get this little cat and actually you can use the bottle to measure it. And if you put 2.5 mil a day and then check your alkalinity the next day, you don't have to worry about the rest. This could be a really good thing for me for people getting into the hobby. That's what I think it's great for. And I think once the bigger companies get their head around that, I feel like the BRSs, I feel like they will create a new way of reefing and a new reef instructional video, and that will be part of it. I really do think that.
I think a big thing as well is that a lot of people can use Alpha Reef in their ATOs. The amount of people that I've seen recently saying that they just add it in their auto top off, and they do it that way, and it works. Now, you can argue the point about the evaporation difference and so on, but the guys that I've spoken to that are putting it in their ATO seem to have good success with it. So,
what's the benefit of that then? I'm just trying to work out because for me, you don't always wait for your ATO to be completely empty, do you? Like you.
Yeah, like with an ATO, yes, say for instance, you're not going to be dosing equally because the evaporation goes by. So say, you know, if water evaporates quickly, say for instance, one day, then you're going to get more water via your ATO in it, you know, that day, yeah. But then what happens in the following day when it might only take out a little bit of water? You know what I mean? You know, evaporation, and then you're only dosing half of what you dose the next day. You know what I mean? So surely it's not going to be like stable. I wouldn't understand how that could work, but never done it, so I can't judge anybody on doing it.
I don't think it'll evaporate out. I don't think the product will evaporate out a lot like the salt does it. But
you dose variable amounts each day. Yeah, the evaporation won't be like 10 mil or half a litre per day. So therefore, you will have, it's not like a dose, so you know you've got 10 going in. But there's a couple of people here, obviously Scott, that's on screen now. I think Practical Reefer as well.
Yeah.
Okay, so they're doing that instead of using a dosing machine. Then that's the key. Right. With you. Sorry, I was trying to work out what the right.
I suppose it depends on the columns. If you've got high-end SPS, then it might have a bit of an issue. But if you've got a mixed reef, got some hardy SPS, you're kind of normal LPS, then actually there might be a little bit of a swing in a day, but maybe not for a week. And if it works for your tank, so again, I wouldn't do it on my big tank. You probably wouldn't. On an established full of SPS, you probably wouldn't take that risk. I'm not saying it wouldn't work. It's not something that I would do, but I can.
It's one less piece of equipment to buy, though, isn't it? And it's one less piece of equipment to buy. One less piece of equipment to overdose. So, mate, if it works for you, as Steve said before,
this is all my point is like exactly like what you just said, Paul. There is like evaporation is different every day. Do you know what I mean? In our tanks, so you could be done. So 1 litre say could go out of your tank, but then the following day 2 litres might go out of your tank. So you're not so the water that's getting dosed in with the supplement, with the Alpha Reef, it's not consistent, is it? That's what my thing was. So in my head, thinking logically, I'm thinking, well, say for instance, 2 litres of water gets pumped in one day. Well, then the following day, 1 litre gets pumped in to your tank that day, Then obviously not enough for that liquid is going into your tank, is it? So how could it remain stable? Do you know what I mean? Whereas on a dosing pump, if your tank needs 25 mil of something, then you're going to dose 25 mil of it daily. Do you know what I mean? So you know where you stand in, but you know what? Like you said, it works for them. So if it works for them,
but if you remember what I said earlier, right? So I've just found out what it's called. It's actually called a carbocalcium. So it's a completely different chemical reaction than when you add alkalinity and calcium at the same time. So it's doing the same thing, but it's a slower process. So on that basis, whilst you could do it in your ATO, if the process doesn't happen instantly when you put it in, like when you add alkalinity. Could you not just, if you were dosing 20 mil a day anyway, just put your 20 mil a day in and then you're done? Yeah. Does it matter that it's spread out over the day? I don't know. I've not seen anything on it, but it's interesting to challenge your theory, isn't it? Really?
I don't dose mine, do I? You know what I mean? I just put 10 mil in that tank at the beginning in the morning every time I wake up, and that's it. I don't dose it through the day. I just put it in the morning, and it seems to be stable all the way through the day. So maybe it breaks down through the day, like you said. It's not instant. Yeah. Maybe it spreads itself out over the day. I don't know how it works, but
that's the limits of my chemistry knowledge, I'm afraid, gents.
The other question is, actually, we say about stability and keeping everything flatlined and everything else, but in a lot of tanks, does it matter?
No.
So this circles back to a point earlier that Ross made.
You can do that, and you say, so what? You know, you're dosing, you're putting it in, so it's staying within a range. It's not kind of like a roller coaster. The coals you've got are pretty hardy. They're more hardy than we probably think, unless you got, like a strawberry shortcake that you look at it all strip, that kind of thing. So the vast majority of stuff we got, you think, well, so what? I do that. It puts it in. It does it on a pretty consistent basis, but not bang on every day. Does it matter?
So there's something that I wrote it down earlier that when Ross was giving his update, it kind of tweaked as well. And look, I get keeping alkalinity level. There's pretty good science to say that that's important. Same as pH, the higher, the better to an extent. Ross mentioned earlier about slowly bringing nitrate up, and I was thinking to myself, well, actually, we're quite happy when we do a 50% water change in an emergency, or if we do a weekly 20% one, to cut the nitrate number down immediately. Yeah. So does the nitrate? I'm not sure that the change in nitrate. Obviously, if you went from 0 to 100 straight away, you'd expect there would be some outcome to it. But when we do big water changes, we cut that down. I did 2 water changes back to back with one of them 88-litre ones, and my nitrate started at 21 at the start of the day, and by the end of the day, it was down at 10. So I halved the nitrate in the tank, and I haven't seen anything go on at all. So I think we're trained, because we've seen all the science and the other things, to think, don't do anything in a rush, because usually that logic helps. But I don't know. I think there are things you can cut down. I would dose lanthanum and take phosphate out in 24 hours. And I've seen Real Reef does it on a 400-gallon tank, and he goes to 2 or 3 phosphate sometimes, and then cuts it down to 0.05 in 2 days. And the guy's got like acros crawling out the tank. So yeah, it's interesting, isn't it?
Exactly. That's a valid point, actually. It's something I've never ever considered before. You know, I've always thought, well, like you say, you're almost browbeaten into that when you first join the hobby, that everybody tells you this is what you must do, this is how your parameters must be, and so on, and then you kind of just stick with that. So I've never considered the fact of, like you said there, when you do a water change, if you're doing a 20% water change, you're lowering your nitrates by 20%, regardless of what you're doing.
You're resetting a lot of your parameters, aren't you?
I believe in that sort of stuff when you're setting up a tank. You know, when you cycle the tank and stuff like that, and you do big water changes to drop nitrates and stuff like that, But like you said, with us in this hobby, we're too of like thinking to ourselves, we're chasing numbers, We get told a certain point, this is where your nitrate should be, I've seen tanks that are running nitrates at 60, 70 parts per million, and they look absolutely incredible. And then I see other tanks that are running like mine. I'm not saying mine's the best out there in the world, but it's running at 2.5 ppm, So I think to myself, well, if I raise mine to 80 ppm, what would it do? Would it strip? Would it go crazy? What would happen? Would it get loads of algae? Nobody knows.
Will you try that for next week, Steve? Tell us how it went.
I'll be taking today.
Do you know what, Steve? That's a really interesting point, because I know I've gone about AAC, but they're display tanks, and the guys in there, their nitrates, I think, are over 25 minimum. I don't think they test nitrate. They're all over phosphate, but do not worry about nitrate at all. And the display tank in there is superb, absolutely superb, and a couple of other tanks as well. So, you think, well, is there an imbalance because your nitrates are out there, your phosphates there? Do you not get cyano, blah, 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 all that kind of stuff? And their tanks are on point. Now, of course, they're in there every day, so they're looking after meticulously, testing every day, blah, blah, blah. But it doesn't conform to the nitrates under 10, because it's well over 25, and they don't even measure it. In fact, some of them, they don't even know what they are. But the tanks are superb. But phosphate, they're all over, because that does, I think, has an impact on SPS more. It browns them out, doesn't it? I think then you can start stripping them, and then the growth and everything as well. But it's a fair point, Steve.
Yeah. See, with my phosphates, I like to keep the phosphate. When I started to strip my phosphates right down to because it comes back again, to the point of where the people who we listen to and reading, researching and stuff like I was always under the impression to keep them around 0.02, that range, 0.02. But when I started to do it and I lowered them down, and it got to like 0.01 and below that, and it was like literally just trace, because I had SPS, and SPS don't like phosphates, blah blah blah. My tank looked shocking. Like the SPS didn't look good. Even the LPS, they just didn't colour up. They wasn't very nice.
Colour, isn't it? Colour's massively affected, isn't it?
But then when it went up to like 0.22 and 0.18, the corals had never looked any better. And I'm like, what the hell? In my mind, I'm thinking, because I'm programmed of what I've read and stuff, higher phosphates means you're going to be in trouble. That sort of attitude, Whereas now, I try to keep mine at 0.07-ish in my nitrates.
So Paul mentioned that video from Reef Bum earlier, and it's absolutely goes circle straight back to that, which is when we all of a sudden worked out that we could control our nutrients and they weren't something we had to worry about anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
Somebody, and BRS were massive on this as well, by the way. It was all about ultra low nutrient system. Oh, and they said 1 to 2 nitrate and 0.01 phosphate. And lo and behold, the nation has a dino problem for the next 10 years. Because everyone absolutely bottomed out that tank. And I was at the front of that queue. I absolutely was like, well, if they've said that, that's what I'm doing. And I literally killed the tank.
But it was the practice, though, wasn't it? About keep it low, keep it low, keep it low. But then people then throwing in other elements to feed the coral. So you're almost keeping it low, and then you're having to force feed it in a different way. I hardly see anything now about people saying about keep it low, because of actually your corals, to your point, don't look particularly good. They don't grow as much. So it's having that balance in that sweet spot, which we've talked about quite a bit.
When you look at any coral farmers, look at the coral farmers. Our Prestige Reef, you watch Worldwide Corals, they're all running their tanks at 5 to 10 nitrate with 0.08, 0.05 phosphate, and they're the ones growing the corals.
That's what it boils down to, mate. You know, for me, but then when you look at it logically, you look at things, and then I begin to think in my head. I think, well, if we have nothing in our tank, what can our corals and what can our things feed on? Our animals in our tank. If we've got zero of anything in it, then obviously they can't feed. So they're going to look pissed off, aren't they? You know what I mean? Yeah, that's the way
I think it purely circled back because someone did an ICP test on the sea and on the ocean, and that's the levels that are naturally occurring in the ocean. Or actually, nitrates and phosphate are far, far lower. Yeah, the reality is they've got 500 fish pooing all over them all day. So it doesn't matter about them. We're not trying to
it's in the water column, isn't it?
Yeah. They have all sorts of other nutrients that we can't, that come in on the tide and circle back out again. So we can't replicate seawater and it work. It's just not going to happen.
Never. No, totally agree.
You hit that though. I don't believe that the seawater is going to be that consistent all the time. You take into changes of weather, changes in tidal currents, that's going to be all over the place. You're not telling me that any coral, wild coral, is consistently the same.
No, I saw something the other day about I think it was in Australia, the coral reefs there, the barrier reef was sometimes at the 30 degrees in the summer, and it drops to, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5. There was about a 4 or 5 degree swing, but of course it doesn't happen overnight, does it? It happens over a month. To your point, there is a swing, but it's gradual, isn't it? So I think that's
that though. What about tidal swell? Surely you've been in the sea before, and you can feel the different temperatures coming in and out. In the Red Sea, the Red Sea is quite a warm sea, and I've been there quite a few times. I absolutely love it, and that's where I found some of my love for the corals. Now, you can feel the cold currents coming in and back out again. So I'm not convinced I just think that we're not able to replicate any of that, and perhaps at that point in the day, the corals know that's coming, and do you know what? Like, you just don't know.
Yeah, there's so many
unanswered. There's so many unanswered things. They might know at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. The sea gets a bit busier. Do you know? Like, just there's so many things, and that's very non-technical. But
this is why reef pumps and all that, like MP10s and 40s and stuff, they replicate the tide. So, like, you get tidal swell crest, you get constant, you get this, that, and the other. Because it's supposed to replicate of what the ocean, but in our tanks, what we can do in our tanks.
Well, that's why I bought them, purely because reef crest is, in my opinion, exactly what I would try to do to try and replicate that. That's the reason why I bought them. If they didn't have reef crest mode on it, I'd have put anything in there. It wouldn't bother me.
The thing is, though, if you look at how technology's changed in general, not just in reefing, but in the past 5-10 years, what's to say in the next 5 years you're not going to be dosing cold water to your tank to give cold currents, and there's going to be so many different things that there's going to be there, and in 5 years' time they'll be saying, "Oh, you must dose cold water in this, and you must do that." And where does it stop?
You're just hoping they don't turn to whiskey rather than vodka, aren't you, Ross? Really, as well, because
I'm just reading this here. Practical Reefers put down here, even at trace levels, the sheer volume of water would provide a constant supply of nitrate and phosphate all day long. I would have thought, and you know what? Exactly, that's what it is. That's why
that's what it needs.
It's 100%. That's the case. You know what I mean?
We just don't need zero. Absolute zero is where the drama comes, isn't it?
Yes,
that's where the chaos comes.
It's like, say, for instance, if you took a sample from Egypt, the Red Sea, you took a sample from there of water, and you took a sample from the Mediterranean, and then you took a sample from the Great Barrier Reef. Are you telling me that all those water samples are going to come back exactly the same?
No, because they're not. They're so different. The salinity is massively different in all of them oceans.
Exactly.
Do you know the biggest thing that I find not funny, but that I find strange about it all is you hit the nail on the head earlier, Steve. So we send away an ICP test, and it comes back saying there's a trace element of tin or something. Look at the amount of metal, rust, rusty stuff in the sea that's there. Now I get it's a massive volume, but there has to be some trace elements of metal in the sea. There has to be, and especially in those coral reefs. You see the coral reefs growing on a shipwreck, and you think to yourself, that ship is
they're not worried about it, are they?
Everything possible there.
You get acropolas on shipwrecks like that are only like 80 meters down. Acropolas the size of like mini cars and all that, and yet
it's attached to a metal rusty surface.
Steel, you know what I mean? How the hell does that work out? You know what I mean? I that was my sentiment exactly. I thought, hold on a minute, they're actually growing on a freaking hull of a ship which is made of steel. So how the hell? You know what I mean?
When you round up where we've been with lighting changing so much, with filtration changing so much, I feel like in the hobby now, we've got a really good recipe with them levels that we're sort of shooting for on nutrients. I feel like most people who keep them around there get a level of success. And don't get me wrong, we all crash our tanks, things go wrong, but never, I don't think, has there been such a clearer path to success than there is now. Like I feel like
you know what though, that you look at, I'd love to know, what would be the percentage of people crashing the tanks, like as in how has the tank crashed? So is it because the levels have bottomed out completely? Is it because of like a heater stuck on, stuff like? Is it because of overdosing? You know what I mean? There's so many different things of how a tank, and I would go with the point of coming back to that. I reckon the majority of people would be because your tank's bottomed out. So there was zero nitrates, zero phosphates. What we are told at the very beginning, is like you need to keep them low. Keep them low. You don't need to have them high. Don't have them high because otherwise, if you get them high, more things can come. You'll get more problems. And yet we hear about it all the time. Get it down to 0 and 0, you get cyano, you get algae, you get dinos, you get everything. And then what do people do? They shut the tanks down. They say, that's it, I'm finishing. And they don't get back in the hobby. And that's the point. Do you know what I mean? For us both.
So I think that's one that we could probably get people to think about this week. And then next week in the chat, post how your tank has ever crashed. If you have had a tank that's crashed, then go that way. As you can see, our reef mum, Julie, has commented saying that's her time up again.
Cool time. She should have a little bell, shouldn't she? Last orders at the moment. She's
bang on every single weekend. She must have a wee stopwatch or something that sits there.
I think
we've only just started debating nutrients, Julie.
Yeah.
I think she has a curry ordered for 10 o'clock.
There's something going on, isn't it? She's got to go or turns into a pumpkin or something at 1 minute past 10.
So next week, are we on, Steve? Are we on your channel next week, mate?
No, I'm working next week. Next week I'm working. I'm working next week, but then I'm back for 4 weeks.
Okay, so back in the normal cycle, so you'll be the week after, and then we'll be in the cycle of 3, won't we? Yeah.
So I just want to say a massive thanks to everybody again in the chat tonight. It's been brilliant. Don't forget to like the video before you all disappear. That would have been a lot. Also, a big thanks to Paul UK Reefer for joining us tonight. Really appreciate that, mate.
Thank you.
Been brilliant again, so appreciate you stepping in for that one. And welcome back, Mogsy. So, next week we'll be on Paul Fishpalace's channel. So, same time again, 8 o'clock on the Friday. Like I said, really appreciate everybody joining, and hopefully see you all next week.
Cheers, guys.
Thanks,
See you later.
Brilliant.
Thanks very much, guys.
Cheers.
Take care, folks. Bye-bye.